Hello, my name is Brant Hunt, and today is the last day of November, I think, as well as I recollect. And my channel is Discerning What is True. I'm live here with Phil Langdon. We're going to be asking some questions, and you're welcome also yourselves to ask those questions as we get into the show today. So, again, here's Phil Langdon as he introduces himself today.
Hi everyone, I'm Phil Langdon. I'm from London. I'm 53. I have a degree in mathematics, applied mathematics. That's my qualification, if you like. I come from a scientific background, but I experienced spiritual ascension in 2014 when I was 44. And I've been talking about it and trying to understand it and figure it ever since.
Thank you, Phil. Glad you're here. Glad you're in one piece.
Yeah. Thanks.
Good to see you. I have I've been, you suggested a particular author that I've been looking into. In fact, I think a couple of weeks ago, you mentioned this guy named Alvin Boyd Kuhn. So I've been going to the library and getting what I call some of his books and interlibrary loan. And I find him fascinating.
Yeah.
The reason why I find him fascinating simply is that simply because I grew up in Christianity, Protestant Christianity, but I also went to seminary, and there's an emphasis always in these schools, somewhat what I would call on the scriptures. What do they mean? Such and such. Da 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 da. And I like what Alvin is talking about simply is he's not looking at things in a literal sense. And unfortunately, 99% of the people, if not more, in these churches are looking at scripture as being literal. And so one of the books I was reading yesterday, my mind just slipped. He was talking about some of these issues, but he was comparing them. And this guy was a brilliant guy. And he mentioned a guy named Gerald Macy. Do you know who Gerald Macy is? Anything about him?
I recognize the name. I'm not familiar, though, with him.
Okay. He was somewhat of a teacher for him. And Alvin, I'm somewhat surprised. He went to Columbia University, and he basically, the department there, whatever the department was, he was interested in what I would call the occult. And they basically created a degree for him. I don't know if you know that or not. It seems that what they did on theosophical issues.
Right.
So I don't know if that's offered anymore at Columbia University. That was back in probably 1920 or 30. So the school was probably much smaller back then.
Yeah.
But I thought it was kind of wow when you think about it, that this guy comes in there and he basically, I don't know if they have a degree, but they gave him a degree in that particular area. So that's what blows me away, because that tells me apparently they saw value in what he was sharing, if you follow what I'm saying. So
yeah.
But anyway, I've digressed a little bit here, and so we have today. If you want to ask questions, you're more than welcome to ask questions. Phil has told me that he has time today to ask, not ask, but take questions today from the audience. This would be worthwhile. If you want to ask questions, this is time to do it. I also want to reiterate that today's show and tomorrow's show will be the last shows we will do this year, because Phil is going to be pretty busy in the month of December. And so with that, this is your opportunity to ask some questions that you feel are valuable for yourself and understanding what spiritual ascension is all about. And so at this point, I just want to make sure that people are welcome into this group and want to ask questions. It's beneficial for you just to ask a question. It's better to ask a question, even if you don't know or don't know what to ask someone. It's basically you have someone who has gone through this that actually can be able to help you see things more clearly. So,
realistically, yeah.
Yeah, realistically. I wanted to add. This is going to be in scriptures here. I've got some, and we can also go through what you call, um, as I did last night, a video and reading what you've changed, what I call leverage in your recent
I,
ad.
I saw it.
Okay.
I watched it.
Okay. 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 And uh, on a lighter note, I want to ask this quickly, so because I'm just curious, because it might be a crazy question, but I'll ask it. You and I may ask questions.
Mm.
Crazy. You remember Jack and the Beanstalk? Do you remember the whole focus of that? Um, could you explain a little bit more? Does that have to do with what I'll call something to do with spiritual ascension itself, or is it something else it's relating to?
Yeah, it's pretty obviously a story that relates to a small man compared to a giant like David and Goliath. And the small man, if I remember rightly, because it'd be nice to look that up again to see the details. But Jack grows a magical beanstalk that takes him all the way up to supposedly heaven, if you like, or the clouds into the sky. And, I think it's the one where he meets the giant.
Yes.
And the giant chases him back down. Of course, the giant represents effectively is a personification of the indifferent creator.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, it's a riddle.
Yes, it is a riddle.
There you go. So it's a metaphorical story. It contains great information. Yeah, it's about spiritual ascension. A lot of those things are. They are about overcoming physical nature.
But didn't he go back up again? Did he go back up?
I don't actually remember, to be honest. It's been so long since I heard that nursery rhyme.
I thought he, I guess, dealt with his fears. If someone can correct me or not, but I remember watching like a cartoon, but this is a long time ago, that he went back up and he didn't see the giant, even though there's a big door there, and he crept into the castle, so to speak, and as far as I remember, he met the king or something of that nature. But I don't know if that's true. Again, this is like 50 some years ago. Just thinking back to my memory. And plus, it was somewhat of a cartoon type of deal. But anyway, I kind of want to get the air through here, such and such, dealing with this issue because we know that simply as these riddles or tales are for children, we think, but in reality, there's a deeper meaning in these things, and most adults miss that. They don't see that.
Yeah. Metaphysics is not a known subject. No. I mean, philosophy, if you think about how many people study philosophy and what career path can they have if they study philosophy, most people don't bother with it. It's too highfalutin. It's for the intelligentsia, perhaps. It's not useful in working life. People want what's useful now, in their life, mostly.
The sad part simply is that people, when I went to school back in the late 70s, college that is, there was a class that was teaching philosophy or logic. But, the class probably didn't have no more than 10 students in it. And if it was probably required a certain degrees to have at least, take 1 semester or 2 semesters of logic or philosophy. But the whole thing was actually happening at that time. This is something that's kind of scary, and I'll say this because I see it that way. Is to do with it won't provide me a job and money. In other words, I need a subject matter, something I can do. This is the travesty of all what's happened. I feel has happened in higher education. Is now at that time is the beginning of what I saw. Basically, we're going to have degrees here for people who actually can have jobs later on, sort of such, and logic and certain other classes like political classes are not quite going, or history is not going to be as major as it used to be. And this was a small college. We're talking about 1,800 students. And so, but I want to, what it was one would call a long time ago, it used to be you would get what I call a a degree in a wide array of what I would call the basics of being able to think. That would be also even with art, but it would be something what you understand in history, logic, and I'm trying to think of the name of what they used to call it. It wasn't a degree, but it was just basically you were given a wide parameter of basic a liberal arts education. That's what it was called, a liberal arts education. So you would have certain classes that you would take, and what happened was simply was that you would have a solid foundation to understand the world that we live in.
Yeah.
So to speak. And that's part was beginning to take place. And I was going to explain to you that at that time, computer science was the major degree at that point, because that's what people were told: go into computer science, get a job, such and such, and that happened. But what had taken place simply is this whole perspective is that we have gone away from that. It was just simply getting your feet wet and all things that were basically building a foundation and being able to think on your own somewhat.
Yeah.
And that was already being ushered out the door when I was going to school there, or already it happened in some ways. It wasn't no longer important. It became what I would call, I need a job and I need a good degree. So I need to go into education, whatever that is. If I'm going to be a teacher, then I'll take classes to be a teacher. If I'm going to be a quote unquote history teacher, or if I'm going to be in the medical field, I need to take a lot of biology classes and understand all that. And so this is, anyway, I'm kind of barking up maybe the wrong tree here, but I kind of think it simply is the reason why a lot of people today are somewhat lost, because they cannot think on their own anymore. They can't. They struggle with that. And what
so I was just going to say, I think there's a lot of getting involved with groups that have already established ideas, so you don't have to think for yourself anymore. You can just latch onto a group and slowly learn their thing, and eventually they usually fall apart because nobody's perfect. And people are looking for this kind of perfection of points of view. The ultimate point of view. Well, we're right and everybody else is wrong. It's almost an expression of self-righteousness as well. That looking for righteousness is about forgetting about yourself and looking for truth, objective truth, to verify reality to yourself. And that. If you're going to do that, if you extrapolate it, it does go to the truth. All knowledge leads to the truth, the ultimate singular truth, without fail. So the so-called path of knowledge is a guarantee that you will find the truth. I think that's why I took it. I specifically took what's called the path of knowledge, because then you grow your understanding of the actual world you're in. And you start extrapolating and thinking for yourself. You must stand on your own feet when you do that, but you need the skills to do that. And you learn those thinking skills with logic, mostly, I found. That was the basis of my thinking. The ability to use logic and put things together for yourself. By doing that, for instance, I found that the tree of life was slightly misrepresented by certain people. And when I realized the simplicity of it, I can see who gets it right and who wanders off with it. So you get to see when other people are doing the right thing as well, when you know things for yourself. And there's nothing more powerful than knowing for yourself from experience. You can't really beat experience, It teaches you the reality of things, the actual reality. But I agree that there is a certain dumbing down in the world, and it's because I've discussed this before. There's a wish for everybody to feel like they are succeeding in life.
Yes.
In the old days, there was a lot of strictness in class and a kind of standoff between teachers and students, that they had to submit to the teacher. But in today's world, people are far more arrogant and outspoken, and they seem to think they don't need to learn certain things, or they don't need to go to school. They know everything already. They have an opinion, and that's what matters. When in fact, the dumbing down has come about because people were failing their exams and becoming destitute not being able to get decent jobs, and there was a movement towards helping that by lowering the standards so that everyone could get at least a decent mark or feel as though they were achieving something. You know, and the problem always comes down to the Bell distribution curve applied to the human race. I mean, if you
is the Bell distribution, you spoke about this before.
Yeah, the Bell distribution curve is literally the shape of a bell, and it's about the number of people. You can apply it to IQ levels, for instance. What's the average IQ on planet Earth, for instance? Well, most people have an average IQ, and that will be the peak of the bell. Most people are in that middle bit. A few people are genius, and a few people can't string two thoughts together on the other end. So you have this whole range. It's just a fact of life. Therefore, it's up to each individual to develop themselves more toward the genius level. If they want to understand reality, most people don't seem to want to understand reality. They just want to get on with their life and be satisfied and happy. But I wasn't satisfied with that, and some people aren't, and they pursue more. I'm a bit more like the ancient Greeks. I pursued intellectual knowledge for its own sake, for example, to see where it went. And this principle, it was actually spoken by a musician called Pete Townsend from The Who, and I'll quote him. In 1966, he was interviewed by the BBC, and these are his exact words. This is a musician playing to audiences in London. He said, his exact words, most of the audience is thick and don't appreciate quality, no matter how much you try and get it across, because the people were complaining, well, your music has no quality. It's just loud, vivacious, and showing off. Well, it was like that because they wanted to get noticed. But he said the reason we do that is because nobody gives a damn about quality. When we play our gigs, most people are on pills. They're drugged up to the eyeballs, and they're drinking all night. They don't care about, if you got one note wrong, it doesn't matter. It's as long as it's loud and noisy, that'll do. So,
and they can dance to the music, so to speak.
As long as there's a beat, who cares? I mean, I found that in Thailand. Well, I worked in Thailand for a year in 2001, and I was into particular kinds of music and bands. And when I presented them, the people who received them didn't give a damn who it was. It was just music. There's no specification. In general, people aren't that bothered about specification. As long as it's nice and simple, keep it simple. See, but when you do that, you lose detail.
Right.
And by losing detail, everything turns into just self-righteousness again, and not righteousness, because righteousness is at the top of the mountain, not halfway up. If you see what I mean, the mountain is a metaphor,
and it's not subjective neither.
No, it's not.
No, you're not. It's objective, very objective.
Yeah. So there is this issue with humanity. Do they really want to know the truth in the first place? Do they, or not? I get the impression that most people aren't fussed because it's too complicated, too detailed. It takes too long. They don't want to invest all that time in it. I invested my entire life in this, from a young age. So and very few people are willing to do that. And I basically sacrificed everything that I could have done to pursue a wealthy life. I sacrificed all that for truth, because truth meant more to me than that.
Yes.
Truth lasts. Wealth does not last. So when you compare those two, I thought, well, truth is always the winner.
Yeah, the superior.
Always. So that's what I'm going to pursue.
I know
There's nothing better than that, I thought. Sorry, Brent, I beg your pardon.
That's okay. I don't want to interject it. I know that I've gone back to my local college here, university, and there are 2 floors of the library there. When I was there was what they call journals on the bottom floor. So there were all these journals from whatever. It was in the physics department, biology. They were all journals that were written, and they were paperback. And eventually, they became books because they would go into, they would have what I call journals either every month or every quote unquote every quarter, so to speak. So you have 4 every quarter, 4 every year, so to speak. And what what I've come to when I went there recently, last couple of years, that whole area is gone. It's gone, and it's all now online. It's all supposedly online. Okay, and I've always as even a political science major, always kind of waking up, so to speak. Be aware when they start trying either the book burning or that type of thing. In other words, to eliminate the books, because books in the past were the key to all areas, not just logic and truth, yes, but other areas of science and math and that type of thing. And so, what the upper part of the library is all books. It's all books, and there is a whole section where I went probably a couple of months ago, and I like to look because I'm like I like to take these books home, just read them. I'd spend all day with them, and these are all books on philosophy, and these are all based upon certain books. And from da 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 da, you had philosophy to deal with Kant, Kierkegaard, Berkeley, but there were probably books I know around Plato, all these types of things. But the point simply is, these books aren't being checked out.
Yeah.
You can look in it and you can look at it and say, well, the last time it was used, 1984 was the last time it was checked out. And I know, I actually asked someone there, are these books going to be here? And she said, well, they're debating if they're going to keep these books here or not. So you're already seeing the idea, well, they can go online. Well, yeah, I understand that, but books are very essential, because what if the internet doesn't work anymore? What if you don't have a computer? See, this is what people are taking for granted. It's actually, I could go to a library and join there as a former student. I could go there and pay a small amount and check out 4 books at a time, 4 or 5 books at a time. And I had to have them back within 2 or 3 weeks. Okay, what if those books are gone? And if that's the same category with every area of all, not just here where I'm at, but every school decides this. And there are schools that are going this route. They've already dealt with the journals. They just do them online because we don't have to have the publishing fee. We don't have to print the paper. We need to save paper. It's just an excuse. But the point, I'm getting off the tangent here. But what I'm trying to say is simply is, usually a well-grounded cultural society has tons of books. It's offered to all people. This is what's critical for people to understand. And what if your internet doesn't work? What if you can't get in there anymore and you have to pay a fee? What if you even no longer? Well, the other key is simply is, maybe I'll a little bit tangent. What if they change the writings that were in there, which they can do? You can go in and you can change it. So this is what he said. Oh no, let's go back in here, correct it. So you can say something else. That's the scary part, somewhat.
Yeah. Another issue, just to mention another issue, a distinction between a library and the internet is when you're on the internet, excuse me, you have to know what you're looking for. So, but when you walk into a library, if there's a row of books on philosophy, they're right in front of you.
Right, their whole subject is right there. I mean, it starts from the beginning of logic or philosophy, and you just you look such and such. I actually rather do the card catalog, which used to be by the Dewey system. You just look up such and such, but that was a somewhat simpler system. Now you can go on, you can use your phone and use it, and you can find that right there. You don't even have to go to the desk, which is, anyway, this is beyond me. But anyway, the point simply what I was trying to say something is, there's, Locke, all these famous people from the past, and no one's reading these books. And these are these are not paperback books. These are hardbound books. These are good books. In other words, they were made to last for 40 or 50 years, you see, type of thing. But anyway, I'm kind of digress here.
That's right.
And, but it reveals a lot about society. It reveals also a lot about society as the West is concerned, as we're moving away from what I call the foundational things that should be in our society. And what's happened simply is that we're moving away from it. And who's to know in the future that you'll be able to, like, for example, when you be able to, like I said earlier, could you get into that such and such books? Anyway, I'm going to get off on a diatribe here somewhat, but I think it's important for people to understand, as I was reading this particular book last night, how Alvin Boyd was pointing out, going back to Plato. And I didn't realize it. I just didn't realize I realized what he was saying then, but I didn't realize in the past, oh, I didn't know that. So I can always learn. See, this is the other thing simply is that so few people don't really realize that simply is you can always learn something, you see.
Yeah.
And I know there simply is a service is provided now is provided that you can actually get professors who do these classes in the past, and you can get them in DVD or downloaded, and they'll all be there what they call lectures in college. You can do that now also here.
Yeah.
It's called a learning channel, not learning channel, learning something series, but it's offered here in the United States, so to speak. But you can also watch, you can pay for a live service, and you can watch it on your computer also. So there's opportunities, but I find it simply is that there are opportunities, but the problem is that people, everything has become, could I say, easy, more than easy sometimes for people, that they don't take it serious.
Yeah. There's definitely a movement away from old writings, as if the modern world is better.
Correct.
The modern world is presented as the highest of human achievement, and therefore anything in the past isn't worth looking at anymore because we know better now. There's that mentality wandering around the internet. I noticed with people, they don't want to read Plato anymore because he's 2,500 years ago. Who cares about that now? It doesn't matter anymore.
Right.
But he was talking about things that always matter.
Right.
So it doesn't matter when he wrote it; it'll always be valid.
You mentioned we're going to change a little bit the subject. You mentioned I think it was either the conversation you had with Steve last week. The purpose of the universe is to have spiritual companionship.
Ultimately, there's so much to say about that.
What do you mean by that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Because spiritual nature, spirit is singular by nature. If we study the aspects of physical and spiritual nature, we realize that spiritual nature is literally singular nature itself. It is singular, therefore it is solitary.
Okay, right.
To add to that, when you arrive in this place called the abyss, you are totally alone. And you are in a root condition, in the womb of the universe as such. There's a lot to say about that as well. But you are totally alone. And the question is, if spirit is singular and there's only one spirit in totality, the love that we are, because everything is born out of love, ultimately, a wish for loving companionship. Heaven is the gathering of... how do I say that? Accomplishment. It's the gathering of accomplished beings that reunify with each other at the same level. And in that state, we have the best companionship there is. There is no self-righteousness in heaven, so to speak. It is simply righteousness. And everyone's realized and gone beyond their little self, their physical self, and realized this spiritual nature is singular, and therefore we have something to do with each other. But the point is, if spirit is singular, there is only one spirit. You can see this in geometry with the unit squared circle that becomes the seed of life and the flower of life. You have an expression geometrically of it's effectively the wish to expand love. And to expand love, you need somebody else.
Right.
Also, if you're on your own, who are you going to talk to? What are you going to talk? Are you going to talk to yourself forever? It's this kind of thing. We're getting into the realms of high philosophy, where we have to define the true nature of things. And when we define the true nature of spirit, it is singular, and therefore there is only one person as such. If there's only one person, there's no companionship. And love requires companionship and relationship. It's part of it. You can love yourself, fine, but if you do that forever, there's no change. The thing with God as well is that the essence of God is always brand new. God is never the same twice as such. It's always God, but God manifests in you as a flame, and a flame is always changing. And this is an aspect of being in heaven. So you're never bored. See, if you're just sitting watching a pleasant scene the whole time, you're going to want to change that after a while because you've seen it.
Right.
And if you're on your own, who are you going to talk to? Who are you going to express that to? How can you express your love to another if there's nobody there?
Right.
These are the issues involved with the expansion of the love that is being. It's about love, basically. Ultimately, right. It really is. But love includes intelligence. Love is intelligent, and therefore there is an intellectual aspect to love as well as the heart, being, and feeling aspect. If you see what I mean, you need some intelligence to appreciate love as well. Otherwise, if you look at a narcissistic person, they're not intelligent enough to forgive. Forgiveness is high intelligence. Yes. Revenge is the opposite. It's the lower mind. It's self-righteousness, not righteousness. Right. So yeah, I mean, God may be this highfalutin perfection of all things, but God is alone. And there's no means to express love. So everything that exists is an expression of love to bring about companionship, which is utterly satisfying, truly satisfying, I feel. So this is how I would explain it. This is how I would go into it. There's an awful lot to say about it, I feel. We could go on and on, about the various aspects of subjective, objective, or not, existence, non-existence, etc., etc. But basically, it comes down to simple being and companionship and love. Yeah, in my mind, that's what it boils down to.
Isn't it when you think about a relationship with a young lady or a young man being together? There's things what I would call they first were. Let's say they're in their early 20s and they meet each other and have a lot of likes and what seem to be on congruency, such and such. And but that changes. Sometimes what I see happens is relationships happen to be one goes in a different area, either goes in could go bad or positive. Someone has a higher desire for some things we were talking about, spiritual interests. And then others would be the other extreme would be that life has been really rough on them and they go off and begin to waste their life and to getting involved in drugs, not being trustworthy anymore in a relationship, so to speak. And which when they do these services, that is the marriage ceremony, they say for what is it
for better or worse.
Yeah, right. And so and it's probably pretty hard, I would say, simply in that companionship that somehow. And I was reading something yesterday from a particular person. Thought it was pretty enlightened in a way that there was a guy and a woman that got married, so to speak, and he was so thrilled about her, and she's the greatest thing in the world, and she had a great attitude, and she could tell jokes, and he would laugh and have a good time, such and such, and that went on for a while, and they got along really well, and then he began to see that she was somewhat a little bit more. She complained certain things. You need to pick up. You need to pick up your clothes, and you need to be, such and such. Da da da. And he began to not see her as being the woman he loved, so to speak.
Yeah.
And eventually he eventually he resents her. He's not.
Right.
He's still, quote unquote. They're still together, but what's happened simply is he's no longer telling her, for example, "I appreciate you." Just little things of that nature, and he begins to draw away. See, because they become they're two. They became one flesh. That's what's going on here.
Yeah.
And what's the sad part simply is he does that for 5 years, and naturally, the woman is she's begins to realize there's something going on wrong here, and this is terribly wrong, and she begins to claw back, in some ways even more, and to get his attention, and all that does is causes him to resent her more and more, and eventually, But what happens simply is he loses sight. Basically, what the comment I get, he loses sight of who she is. It brought him happiness. He begins to lose that. It can be male or female. It doesn't matter. Such and such. I think the other thing simply is you can see it also is that people fall in love. And I don't even know what I'm going with this direction, but anyway, the point simply, I think again is critical. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out. Part of this question is to do with, over 100 years ago, there was a different. People didn't supposedly break up. It was or divorce, so to speak. Now, I don't know if that's because of the enormous religious connotation. If you divorce someone, you're a bad person or whatever. That could be possible for sure. But it also simply it was a life was a much. I don't know if it's tougher. It's a different way now. But they had to have each other to work. In other words, there were far more what I call physical work. You didn't have a washing machine. You didn't have a dryer. You didn't have electricity. All these things that we take for advantage of. They're good. No, I'm not calling them bad. But what's happened simply is that the whole situation now, they had to have each other in order to even take care of the kids, so to speak. And that's it's lost today because now it's gotten to the point. It used to be what we call the man was the man who went out and did all the work, and then the woman would take care of the home, such and such. And that's changed dramatically in my lifetime. And now it's even gotten to the point simply is that most women are the ones who are alone by themselves taking care of the kids. The man is no longer around, you see. And
so I must say, not that long ago, people didn't live very long. They lived much shorter lives.
Yeah, I have photos. I have photos of a guy during the Depression here in South Carolina of the pictures of them and women who were 30 or 40 years old, and they looked like they were 60 and 70 years old. They'd been through. They basically they were farmers, and it was a very, very, very rough life.
Yeah.
And when I say farmers, they may have 1 or 2 acres, and they're just trying to survive, food-wise. And there's no other things there, so to speak. So
our modern systems are trying to make that work better so that nobody suffers. That's the basis of our modern a national system, so to speak, where farmers are all working for the common good instead of just for themselves. In the old days, and if one of them had a drought, if a drought was in one area, all those farmers are going to starve that year or something. So there's much more of a communal nature to the way we do that kind of thing these days, I feel. And people lived less long, so they had less time to spend with each other. Now,
there was very little what I would call leisure time too. There was basically
we have so much more of that now. We have to fill the time in with our relationships, and now we have to explore deeper and deeper aspects of our relationships that we didn't have.
Actually, that's advantageous too.
Yeah, I think so personally. The issue you were raising a little while ago there was about the guy who fell out of love with his wife. They fall in love. It's a typical story. It sounds like Kips. I don't know whether you've heard of a story called Kips. It's written by H.G. Wells. It was about a guy. He gets married. He has a good life. He runs a drapery shop with his wife, and she turns into a nagging old hag.
Oh.
She doesn't love him really. It was just convenience. It's this sort of thing. And
Oh,
he leaves, and he leaves to find a happier life. It's a
okay.
classic story that they turned into a musical called Half a Sixpence. It's a fascinating story because it relates to everybody. I think everyone can relate to that. You know, they go into something hoping for the best. It's great to start with, but the sustaining of it is an issue.
Right.
That becomes an issue. So if we can extrapolate that and make it a spiritual issue by
Right.
recognizing that, how do you sustain a relationship with your highest self? If we live in our lower mind, that the human body is effectively the lower mind.
Correct.
Whose gematria, by the way, is Hey Fren in Greek, which gives us 666.
Oh, I didn't know
That classic number that refers to the lower mind, and that is the physical nature that seeks self-righteousness, self-gratification, not looking beyond oneself to the truth, which you'll find in much more philosophic circles. For example, there's a conversation in a Bruce Lee film where he has a master who says to him, "What is the highest technique you hope to achieve?" And he says, "To have no technique." And then his master says, "What are your thoughts when facing an opponent?" And he says, "There is no opponent."
Right.
And then he says, "Why is that?" "Because the word I does not exist."
Yes. Right.
This is highfalutin philosophy that is beyond most people.
Correct.
You know, they can't even go to that. They don't understand what that refers to.
No.
It takes a lot of explanation. Another issue of relationship and sustaining them is it an unconditionally loving relationship? Therefore, as your partner grows, do you allow them their growth, or are you going to try and stunt them and keep them honed in to your
Try to pull them back down.
your expectation, basically? Surely unconditional love allows the other person to freely explore their own life.
Right.
You know, it's not conditional love. It's not that, well, now that you've got a scar across your face, I don't love you anymore because I can't look at you. That's not unconditional love. You see what I mean? There's a great distinction. And I think when people get married when they're younger, it's because they're so attracted to each other. But in 50 years' time, when people go through middle-age spread, as some people do, I mean, look at Carrie Fisher from Star Wars. She was a beautiful young woman. And she was even a beautiful I found her a very beautiful old woman, but she went through middle-age spread, and she lost the slim look, the sexy sort of model kind of thing. And she became, she looked like a mother in her 40s and 50s. And she complained a lot. She had a lot of passive aggressive things to say, I noticed. And she was very funny, very comical lady. But of course, she's no longer the poster girl, you know. So do we still love her? Well, she's not the poster girl. So the question is it conditional or unconditional love in relationships? And of course, going to the ultimate relationship with God is totally unconditional and totally forgiving. God is forgiveness, which is akin to unconditional love.
Yeah, because we don't think that's we've in many ways, simply as we don't want. I don't know. It's part of maybe programming in church or whatever, but to do what I would call we sometimes we don't we want that forgiveness, but it's in a wrong manner, because in reality sometimes we're doing it just to make ourselves feel okay again, type of thing. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's just again part of this thinking simply is, and the other simply is that you have people who are taught in churches such and such that unless you get your act together, then God will forgive you. See, it's a conditional God. You see, it's conditional. It's a conditional love again. So you see, this is the whole man-made thing. I thought it was interesting when you said 666 thing, such and such. That's a big issue in certain churches that they consider that the devil, the beast, or whatever.
Yeah, the beast. The physical body is the beast. That's right. Yeah.
But they don't see it that way. They see it in a way that is some type of figure or a persona of something as a devil, you see.
Yeah, the creator.
Right.
Yeah, the creator is the devil. Yeah.
Right.
That's right. So there's that as well. And they won't associate that with themselves. No, I'm with God. my body is for God. Well,
Right.
that's great. That's a good intention, but your body came from the devil.
Right.
It says so in the Gospel of John. It
Right.
clearly says, you are children of the devil.
Right.
And you want to do what your father wishes, and that is self-righteousness.
But that is just the body. That's not the spirit, you see.
That's
The
right.
spirit is complete. When I try to explain to people in a way, maybe last night the video I did simply is that you are spirit. In order for you to come here, you came in a spirit, but you had to be encapsulated into a body. And the body itself is a different makeup. It has its own quote unquote inclinations or desires, so to speak. And so that is the whole thing you're dealing with a lot of times. You're fighting with your own self, so to speak, in what it wants.
Yeah.
And but that's part of duality. You see.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the idea. Simply is the duality part. Simply is in a way for you. You have to rise above that and not allow the body to always demonstrate or dominate you in whatever it wants. Because I could sit at home here and I could eat milk and cookies all day, and the next day, well, that's not very beneficial for me physically, at all. I'm going to gain some weight, and I'm not doing any exercises. So, and it's probably going to cause some issues maybe with blood sugar. So yes, I can do that. I can do that with my body, and but there's a penalty to pay because you're giving in to the body's wanting what it wants, so to speak.
Yeah.
That's just a deal. It's the same thing in all things. When you go to the two extremes. You go, you can go extremes everywhere, and the body, So, but I'm trying to explain to people, and I think it's critical, is that deep down you're a spirit. That's all you are. This is just a body you're in. You want to maintain it. You want to keep yourself in good shape because you want to be living later in life in some ways, as we were talking about, beyond 40 years old, to be able to come to these deeper things in your life and say, oh, man, was I stupid when I was 20 years old? Where did these concepts come from, or what I thought? And you gradually progress. That's to your advantage. You want to live older so that you can continue to reevaluate and see, okay, that needs to be chunked. That I don't want that in my life anymore. That does not stimulate spiritual growth in me. That's the opposite. That doesn't make me grow, or it doesn't make me. I don't have that. If I have that desire for truth, simply is the body wants to say, well, I'm tired. I want to go to bed or whatever. Such. And there's sometimes you have to give in. But the point simply is what I'm trying to say simply is there must be a magnetic deal with this, with what you want with truth. In other words, you want to know the truth, and the longer you live, hopefully you will have that have a more of an opportunities to do that. You see.
Yeah. When you were mentioning eating cookies and becoming, gaining weight and stuff, these indulgences can lead to discomforts,
right?
Mental discomfort, emotional discomfort, and physical discomfort. And when you have any discomfort, it will prevent you from going into samadhi.
Yes.
Samadhi is pure, total relaxation. If you find it hard to relax in the first place because of your discomfort, you won't find samadhi.
No, because
this idea of pursuing truth, it kind of pushes you into a sense where you need to be able to forgive yourself, forgive others. This kind of attitude promotes a sense of self-comfort. You feel comfortable and happy in your own skin. Then you can easily go into samadhi and find heaven and God. So these things, they prevent you from doing that. That's the point I wanted to make. Why would anyone bother? Somebody might think, well, it doesn't really matter. I can become overweight. It doesn't matter. God is God. I can still pursue my religion. Right. But how comfortable are you in your body? Because it says in Psalms 46:10, be still and know that I am God. If you cannot be still, you will not know that God is God.
Right.
So you see what I'm saying? So there's a certain amount
when you get older, such and such, and you continue to live that type of lifestyle, whatever, your body is going to be in more pain, and you're not going to feel like even trying to do anything, much less be still.
It's much easier to love when you're comfortable in your own skin. Yeah,
Right.
if you, yeah, yeah, absolutely. There's that subtlety to it as well, to maintain a sense of regular health
Right.
that allows you to relax, so to
Yes.
speak.
S-
Um,
s- Go ahead.
yeah,
Go ahead.
no,
Go
no,
ahead.
I just want to say that is the point I wanted to make about that. Why, what is the point of pursuing these truths and health, physical health, mental health, emotional health, etc.? What's the point of doing that? Well, the point of doing that is to complete your purpose for your physical existence.
Yeah, your pilgrimage, your whole, maybe like
You're here for a purpose. I mean, the earth is a school. I
yeah,
classify the earth as a school. And if you're on earth, you are here to learn. That
right,
applies to me and anybody else. Even though I've had illumination and made heaven, I'm still learning. I've simply
right.
gone from the classroom of earth to the classroom of God.
Okay.
And
Yes.
God has been teaching me all about forgiveness. That
Yes.
that's that's a major lesson. A major lesson is forgiveness. The Course in Miracles people go on and on about this for very good reason. I mean, I know they say that their material was actually channeled from Jesus, which makes it sound and seem suspect, but the content is pretty good most of the time, I found. There may be too much of it because people
Right.
can write too much. You need to keep things short as possible. So it doesn't take 3 years to read a book. You don't want that.
Right.
You want to be able to take the information in, but forgiveness is one of the greatest things that we can learn on planet Earth because it's so full of hatred and violence and opinions, self-righteousness, these lower-minded things that we need to rise above to find happiness because they will create unhappiness.
The, but the true happiness is finding yourself, finding your
Yeah,
true self who you are.
yeah,
Uh,
finding God within
there's
yourself. And
nothing. It's an inside job, so to speak, but it's
yeah,
not on the outside, so to speak.
that's right.
There's whole. We
That's
see
right.
this immensely now, in a way, uh, materialism that people are so. This is going to make me happy. I'm going to have a new car, or I'm going to have a new house, or whatever it is, and it's been um, as though that is the epitome of life now, is to take have all these toys, so to speak, or have all this stuff.
Yeah.
There are now. I know that sometimes I hear women. It doesn't mean that women don't play games, such and such, but the men play. They come home from work, so to speak, or don't even go to work. And basically, what I get the idea simply is they play games on the computer all the time. They're so they become they're not adults. They're children. They haven't grown up, and
That's right. That's
it's
right.
is this a part of this? We just go back to the schooling part simply as we give you a nice answer. Well, part of the reason why schooling takes place is simply is for you to grow up.
Yeah.
You not to, but you notice the same thing in England as I have noticed here in America. This took place over 30 years ago in the 1990s. There's a complete different change in everything, the structure, everything of schooling and teaching. That the point simply is we don't want Johnny to feel bad about himself. So it's all about his emotions now instead of basically him being able to learn things on his own, you see, and uh, being to grow up, to become an adult, so to speak. So,
Yeah, definitely. On that note, I must say, around here especially, I'm in Southwest London, and there's a school near me where school blazers. They have a badge that represents a school symbol.
uh-huh.
There'll be a symbol of the school on their badge. It's like a sort of
It's
coat
like
of
a
arms
It's
almost.
it's like a coat of arms. Okay, it's not like here. It would be like their football team, so to speak, or their
Right.
athletic program. So they would have like a bulldog on it, or you know a blazer, not a blazer, but a wolf or whatever, something of that nature, to identify what school they go to or whatever
Yeah.
school they like. Da 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 da. So
Yeah. The school near me has a badge that looks like this.
see, I can't. Let's see if I can make it larger. Let's see. Hold on a second
See?
here. No, it didn't work. Okay. All right.
That's
Okay.
that's their badge. It's on their
Ah,
blazer here. And what that says is, in terms of what you're saying in schooling and learning, is the point of learning is to make you enlightened.
right. Right.
That's the point of it. That's
Right.
why these symbols are always on the school badges and associated with schools in my area here, because it's very religiously based. It's very Christianity based.
Is it
And
a Catholic?
here
Is
is
it a
Jesus Christ. This is Jesus Christ. This is your
yeah,
prize.
right.
This is your prize. This is
Right.
what you're going for.
Right.
You are literally trying to make heaven by developing your brain and your understanding of reality that you are in.
Right.
So the goal is to make you an angel.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
it. That's the goal of schooling, to make you an angel.
Right.
How funny that no one ever says that.
Nobody says or figures it out. Is
That's
that
right.
a public school or is that a private school, Bill?
No, it's a public school.
It's a public school.
Public schools, yeah. Yeah, there's loads
So,
like that around here.
so
Yeah.
what is the name of the school where you're nearby?
I don't know, actually. I don't know. I think it's just Twickenham School.
Okay.
There's a place called Twickenham near me. I think it's just Twickenham School. I think. I can't
Is that
remember.
is that a name after the area, a sub township?
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah. It's just the school of this area. That's right. Twickenham is an area. That's right.
And what is the word? I was curious when Layla said something that she was from a certain shire. Does shire mean town or city or something of that nature?
Shire. I can't remember what that means. It's something to do with the
S-H-I-R-E?
landscape.
Pardon me?
I think it's something to do with the landscape.
Okay. Okay.
Shire. It's a type of landscape. I think it's rolling hills. It's something to do with that, I think. Just offhand. I don't know exactly.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
It probably means something, because the word bury, B-U-R-Y, means hill.
Yes. Yes.
And down the road from me is a place called Sunbury, meaning hill of the sun.
Okay.
You
Okay.
see. And there's another place down the road called Isha. And Isha is Esher, which is a version of the name Jesus.
Right.
It's literally named after Jesus, that town, Isha. So there's lots of religious connotation about the names around here. But then I am in the Kingston Landscape Zodiac here. So you're going to have a lot of associations with that and religion in this area, which we do, you know.
Well, so far we haven't had any answers. Have any questions yet from the audience.
Is there an audience? Because
right now there's zero, so I don't.
Yeah.
We'll see. There have been people coming in and out, so I don't know. They're here, and they're here for like a minute or two, and they take off. So that's
it's early in the morning for you, isn't it?
Well, yes, in Eastern Standard Time. So if it's a little after 10 now, so you go on the West Coast, and it would be 7:10, and so there are four time zones in the United States. So at 9 a.m. here, it's here, and then the Central Standard Time is 10 o'clock, and the next time frame is 11 o'clock, and the last one is 12, I think it is. So if it's 8 o'clock, we start at 9. So going backwards, it would be 5 a.m. on the West Coast when we started. Now it's 6 a.m. a little after 6.
Right.
So we're on the and you're 5 hours, so it's a little after 3 o'clock there, correct now?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
I wonder what it was like. The other thing is interesting. Who was the one who invented time? That is the whole idea with clocks and sort of. They like to know a little bit more about that and the whole time zones throughout the whole world, so to speak. I guess I could look it up.
I think the idea of the clock goes back a long way. It's certainly identifiable in Babylon when they talk about 360 degrees. When somebody mentioned, Mr. Mensa mentioned, he thinks the Earth had a year of 360 days in the past. Well, we don't know, but the number 360 refers to a full circle.
Right, 360 degrees. Right.
Right. It's a natural way of defining a circle, the fullness of a circle, and that always relates to you coming round full circle in your existence, to finding yourself, as it were. You see? Yeah,
because we are a cycle or a circle ourselves. As we start out as light, we also are a circle, if you want to call it that. Although we can compare what you shared with the whole idea of bread, or sunrise to sunset in our lives also.
Yeah, yeah,
Sunrise, we are young, we're on four legs, not four legs, but we're crawling. And then eventually we can talk, we can walk, what I call when we get a certain age, and we go a certain age, and then gradually we have three legs when it's two legs and a cane, so to speak. So,
yeah, yeah, that's right. Characteristically, yeah.
let me ask you a question. Do you want me, do you want to talk about the subject we were talking about off air at this point? Do you want to go into that? Or
If you want to mention that, that's fine. Yeah.
So I was, see if I can get it here to work out. The other thing I try to point out to people, it's a scary thing these days, is that everybody, this attitude of, I grew up in this type of thinking. So the attitude simply, if I'm looking for something, I don't take free advice. In other words, I'm willing to pay for that advice. So this is the mindset of most people somewhat. I'm willing to pay someone to help me see certain things, either like I do a horoscope or astrology chart, such and such. But they don't take value when someone is offering something to them for free.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, because you feel
isn't that strange? Isn't that strange to think of that particular perception? Perception.
Yeah.
People.
Yeah, that's right. The offering for free is like unconditional love.
Yes, to the person, yes. But the other way they look at it is, well,
the advice
must not have any value to it if you're not selling it to me. So we got this idea of a marketing type of thing. We work for something. People like we were talking earlier. I've got to go get a job as a young person, so I've got to go to an area where I can make some money. You see. So it's going back to logic. You're going to say something. I interrupted you. Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's just the idea of value. If I pay for something, then I'm saying this thing is valuable to me. Therefore, I will cherish whatever it is.
Right.
But if you just give it to me for free, then it has no value because I haven't determined that it has any value.
That's all to do with the mercantile or commerce type of perspective.
It's just perception, nothing but perception.
You see it's perception, so you don't see it as doing commercial or commerce.
The appreciation of something is perception. So if I give away my books for free, people will perceive that they're worthless.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
If I charge for them only, I'll be accused of making money out of truthful spirituality, which is detrimental to the whole principle of what I'm doing.
Which is the greater.
So you have the choice. It's free and available to buy.
Right. Right.
That's the best solution I can come up with, because I don't do it to make money. I do it to cause conversation and to make people think, to express and share experience that I think is valuable.
Right.
That's all.
Right. Right.
So it has that value for me, but if you don't read it, you don't know what value it has.
Well, the electronic books today that have some advantages, just like you said. You're in England. Let's just say this, for example, you're a teacher and I'm a disciple, and as I'm following you. Well, the only way in the past was simply is for me to be able to, you to be my teacher, would be that I would have to go to England and travel there and be with you, and you could teach me, so to speak.
Right.
Okay. So that would cost not many ways, different things. That if I'm going to be there with you, it costs me to fly there and back. Going to be that, and then it's going to, how many days I'm going to be there, a week, so whatever. Then I've got to eat such and such. I've got to have a place to stay. So there are immense costs there that someone would reevaluate and say, well, I don't know, I don't have so much money in my bank account here. I may be able to get there and back, but I don't know if I'll be able to stay somewhere. So, but what I'm trying to say simply is that there are disadvantages and advantages of the system we have. In a lot of ways, we can communicate what we're doing right now, This is
Mm.
free.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is free.
That's right.
And
In the old days, I don't know whether you're familiar or people are familiar, but in the old days, when you had somebody who became a wise man or a wise woman, they would no longer have a fixed abode because their purpose in life is now to teach and help others. So they would go out from village to village teaching.
yes, yes,
And people in the village would feed them while they're doing that. So they didn't
that's
have to worry
correct.
about food.
They would take. That's right. So they would be basically teaching that way.
Yeah,
Hello,
as an exchange.
yeah, Mr. Menza is in the house. I see here. Hello, Mr. Menza. Good to see you.
Hey, Mr. Menza.
So yes, because reality simply is you would be going out to the people and talking, even though you had again what I call it a very little chance of actually having any success. Although in those times, anyone who came and was teaching was something pretty important
Yeah,
because the person who's doing this knew it's important and would take that risk in
yeah.
going out to different communities and walking and sharing with the community.
Right, but in a village, people have very little to do. In a village, you know, in the middle of nowhere, they've got very little to do. So if a teacher turns up, they're perfectly willing to sit and listen to him. And what the teacher is doing in this sense is sowing seeds of truth.
Right.
That's all they can do. They don't expect someone to stand up within 5 minutes and say, "Hey, I understand everything. I get it. Thank you so much for coming." You know, it doesn't work like that. You know, all they're doing is sowing seeds, and you see that in an old Babylonian depiction of a man, like a god man, and he's holding this little handbag
Right.
that is full of pollen. It's the same principle as the sower of seeds in the parable of the sower of seeds. Some seed falls on rocks, some seed in weeds, some seed falls on rich soil. So it's the same principle. A teacher is sowing seeds of understanding with other people that takes them the next 30 years to develop in themselves.
Correct.
So there are no instant results. And I think that when people listen to somebody like me, they want an instant result.
Yes.
You see, they want me to give them the samadhi experience or the enlightenment experience, which is impossible. Right. I can only plant a seed, and it will grow in you. There's the principle of taking time over this as well.
Yes, and when I was just sharing a part of the book last night, I was thinking about the seed. The seed is a very important thing in the New Testament. I don't know if people realize that. When Jesus was talking about certain things, he talked about the seed a few times, and I had a friend who shared something with me, and I shared it with that video last night. But I think it's kind of key is that when you throw that seed out, you know, like you said, it's a possibility of many bad things happening. You know, either it never germinates, it never gets any water, it's hard, it dries, so it never able to even get into the soil, so to speak. And then you have weeds that can come in and take that whatever little water's there. It will take that water and use it for itself. And there would be anything very little for that seed. But what she was talking about, I thought was interesting, was that, you know, it's important that you go in order for seed to germinate. It has to go in darkness. Yeah, it has to be in darkness.
That's right.
Okay. So that's where we're at here on this planet. Is we're in darkness.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. And then in order for it, it has to have good roots to be able to come up out of that, because it's got to have enough energy to pop out of the soil and break the soil from coming, you know, type of thing, coming out and seeing the sun.
Yeah.
But what's important is simply is that she spoke of, if the root system is not good enough or actually deep enough, it will not sustain a tree. It will not be able to have limbs and hold up and be balanced, so to speak. It will not be able to be grounded, as we would say. So it has to go deep into the soil. Yeah. Which reveals a lot.
Yeah.
For its
metaphor, yeah.
Yes.
And notice when we do this, that the natural world around us is a metaphorical source of teaching and learning for us. Just by thinking about that nature of a tree, we can learn about ourselves and how we root ourselves in reality. that is grounded in logical truth and sense and reason that we can
Right.
rely on. It's robust. A tree's roots need to be robust, otherwise the higher it goes, the more it'll tip over without
Correct.
decent roots.
Right.
Yeah.
It won't be able to sustain the weight that's on it up top if it's not depth wise, you know. So she also said something I thought was really critical too. She said that that tree with other trees actually have what's the word? Their roots are all together and they communicate in that regard also with the roots in the ground.
Right.
So in other words, when one particular tree gets some type of disease, it can actually have effect upon the rest of the trees.
Yeah.
You see? And so go ahead. You're going to say something?
No, you're just going to expand it a little. If you want to use this metaphor for the universe, because the James Webb Telescope is confusing people at the moment because it's too brand new. So you see, the ground the tree is rooted in is the equivalent of the womb, the original womb of what's called Prakriti, which is a Hindu version of the abyss.
Okay.
The abyss is zero. It's the ether zero. It's the nature of spirit, and it's the first manifestation of the nature of spirit, and it's from where everything comes, physical. So if we associate the abyss with the ground that we plant the seed in to make a tree, as that tree grows and makes new seed, those seeds will drop back to the ground, and only one or two of them might germinate and grow another tree here.
Right, because if you had them all to germinate, guess what? There would be no room for them to actually to grow.
Right, every one of those trees that is going to grow and come from that is all rooted. They're all rooting themselves in exactly the same ground. It's always the abyss, as it were. So these ideas of multi-universes, or the universe is older than we think and there's more in it than we think, and yada yada. If we compare it to a tree, it's always going to come from the ground, and that is the abyss. So it can make more. So we can propose that there are other universes as well. Correct. Because this universe, the greatest thing to know about the universe is that it generates mass. There is not a standard amount of mass in the initial expansion. It's a pulse of light, not even mass, that becomes an acceleration which is associated with mass. Right. So mass increases in the universe over time, and that's something that isn't normally thought about. Just like a tree, where does all the material of the tree come from? Well, it's taking it from the ground and mixing it with water and sunlight. These things go together to increase its mass. The tree literally grows in size, just like the universe.
Yes.
The universe increases in mass as it expands and goes on. I feel this is my opinion. I have to put it down to my opinion, but I can easily relate it to every aspect of a tree. Easily.
Let's see. Mr. Menza has a couple comments here. Well, I was going to ask today simply: are there many? There are people who speak what I would call. There are many ways to find God, but I'm going to just hold that question. Mr. Menza makes a comment. Says trees have a symbiotic relationship with fungi, connecting the trees. And then he asks a question here. He says, Phil, is it right there are only two dimensions, being physical and spiritual?
Yeah, there is only the physical and spiritual. The spiritual nature is utterly infinite and has just potential, just endless potential. Everything physical can be recorded by it easily. Everything, every detail is infinite potential, spirit. Infinite potential.
And with that, he says, or are there many? In other words, are they more than just physical and spiritual? In other words, are there many of them? More than that.
No, you're only ever going to have these fundamental two things. I mean, it's all based on observation. You're only going to have spiritual observance and being, and an objective reality that it can work with to understand itself and become basically what we refer to as God, and unify with God, which is the highest of understandings there is. that you only need one thing to bounce off for that. You don't need a multitude of things as such. So you have a single physical life. This is the thing that you compare yourself with, so that you achieve that height in your understanding. So I would say there is only physical and spiritual. That's it. I mean, a lot of things back that up. A lot of different religions will tell you that as well. They're like Shiva and Shakti in Hinduism is exactly the same identification.
Right.
Shiva means consciousness or awareness or the observer, and Shakti is energy. Energy is what we use. Energy changes, and we don't ever change. So we need to come into a changing environment in order to transform ourselves from ignorant to enlightened.
So what was the question I asked earlier? Oh yes. Are there many there are many people who come in here. I've heard them. I should say here, but that there are many ways to find the truth. In other words, there's many different paths, such and such, to find the truth. Yeah. Is that a cop out, or is that actually the truth?
Well, no, it's true. If you think of a pyramid, it has four sides. Four sides. Those four sides relate to four different aspects of your being, and they relate to your somatic centers. So, in other words, they all convene at the top into a singular point as the tip.
Correct.
So all passages towards truth reach the truth. You can do it intellectually. You can do it emotionally, because there is emotional truth. There's emotional understanding. You can do it purely intellectually. You just by pondering and contemplating. If you go out into nature and sit there and look around you and spend a lot of time thinking about what you're looking at and where it might come from, what its nature is, observing it over time, there's this experiential nature to observation that can take you to the truth as well by itself, without ever having gone to a university. If you go to university, you speed up that process.
Right.
I would say. But there is an emotion. There are several routes to God. Yeah. There's the loving emotional route to God. It's called devotion, devotional way. By thinking about what has been written about God's nature, you are contemplating God's nature. You're not learning physics. You're contemplating God's nature. That's not the path of knowledge. I chose the path of knowledge myself because it was robust. And I knew my life was hectic and it would be the best idea for me. A devotional nature is very difficult to pursue in London. If you're in India, a devotional path is much easier.
Is it because of the way life is set up there in India that it is here?
It's different. Yeah, it's completely different. Yeah. You can get away with doing things over there you can't do here. This is an industrial country, England. That's it. You go to work, otherwise you die. Right, but now the government gives you money if you got problems, but that never used to be the case.
Yeah, that was, even that's probably 25 years ago. That was impossible. They would not give you.
Yeah. But there must be some stimulation, mental stimulation in any of these paths. Even in the devotional path, you are thinking and contemplating the nature of God. That is using your brain and your awareness as well. So they're just different varieties of the same basic principle of coming to understanding.
Yeah, I was just thinking as simply as that some people have mentioned as simply as that I go out in nature and that's where I'm with God. To me, you can poo-poo this idea. I'm thinking, okay, that's great. That's what you want to do. But I think it would be a better way to actually begin to ask questions within your own self and say, why am I here? What is my purpose? Type of thing for me. Let's say I tend to be, I'm Aries. So Aries is just like, a ram. So, and my name, Brandt, is in German is firebrand. Okay. And also sword. So that's the fire side of me. In other words, I tend to be very somewhat judgmental in the ways I'm like, let's get to the truth of the matter here. Let's get this other.
Discerning.
Yeah, but the point is,
Not
like,
necessarily
let's
judgmental. Yeah.
get this fluff out of the way. Let's just get to the real stuff here. Okay, let's
Yeah.
stop playing games. Okay,
Yes.
um,
Yeah.
because but I've only come to that realization in the last few years. I have not. That's not been always my whole life. It's only
Right.
been certain things have happened in my life, and it's coming to the idea simply is that wait a minute. Um, what are we doing here? It's like this hodgepodge of all these ideas of I can do whatever I want to do. Da, 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 okay, but then I'm like, but you're not getting it here. There's so I look at also in a scriptural perspective, that is, in the narrow path. So in reality, simply, it's not a wide path. So it's not like you have all these options. You can go any way you want to go, type of thing. But it's a narrow path, so to speak,
Yeah.
as I
Yeah.
understood it, and
Yeah.
it's not the wide path. Um, and but anyway, someone I think says a statement by Mr. Menzies says Phil did it intellectually. Would you say that's correct?
Yeah, I got to a point where I understood that I didn't have to worry about anything, and I'd already studied religion, physics, maths, logic, philosophy. I'd done all these things, and actually had a good idea of reality already, so that I was simply ready to step into the understanding itself. So I'd basically climbed or made my own pyramid, and I'm now standing on top as if I am the capstone, waiting for a true capstone to come.
Right.
I waited and waited. I didn't expect anything, but then when you do that, when you acclimatize yourself to the best thinking you can possibly come to, you are so close to God by that point anyway, that you are attracting that event to you. When you go and have you have an opportunity to have that event. And the catalyst just for me was Angkor Wat, but it might be something completely different for somebody else.
Right.
They might have it in their local park while feeding ducks. Anything's possible with God. Anything is possible. God can come at the most unlikely time.
Right.
It just suddenly happens, and all of a sudden, that's it. It's done. It's there. You can't predict it. It's impossible to predict. So there's a kind of waiting, and it has a lot to do with the idea of faith, in that your faith is taking you to this enlightenment. The faith in enlightenment, and that it exists in the first place to receive you, that it already exists, that is a certain kind of faith you need. You can't just give up and walk away and stop thinking,
Right.
and then expect it to happen. You're looking for it anyway, generally, but you do carry on with your life. Your life is happening anyway. So there wasn't anything that spectacular on the way there. The event is spectacular, but on the way there, it was rather trying. I found it very trying because there was always somebody cleverer than me, and I thought, well, I have to be as clever as that person, because I'm on the path of knowledge. I need to know what's there up front so I can know exactly what to do about it. And I didn't even know what to do about it, but it was given. See, because you're so close, it's just given to you. And you don't have to figure that out. You don't have to figure out samadhi. It's just given to you at that point. So there's a certain amount of God reaching down and helping you up that last step as well. So it's not just you. And if it was just you, if God had nothing to do with it, you would have a massive ego if you actually made enlightenment by yourself.
Yeah.
How big would your ego be? Look at me. I've done it by myself. I don't need God. God wasn't there. No. God is that enlightenment, and you do need God's help, and you do let go of your ego over it. You do, because God just wipes out your ego just like that. You don't need the ego anymore. You realize you don't need it.
But the ego, in some ways, I try to explain this sometimes to people. The ego is, in some ways, necessary, maybe a necessary evil, in order for you to transcend too, isn't it?
Yeah, because you look after yourself. You learn to respect yourself, look after yourself.
You honor yourself, and you say, "No, I'm going to have boundaries. This is my path.
Yeah,
I'm determined to do this. This is what I'm going to do."
Yeah. There's a massive difference between having an ego, standing over people, thinking you're better than them, and simply learning and developing yourself in a way that is good for you. Because you might think, well, when you're 40, you're much better than a 10-year-old. You know more than a 10-year-old. But are you going to have an ego over that? Are you going to be arrogant
Right.
about that? Or just
Yeah.
simply accept the fact that you know more the older you are? And it's not a competition.
It's
The
not a
ego,
competition. 10-year-old,
yeah,
which
the
doesn't
ego is a
in the
competitor.
first place. Yeah, right. You're not on, I would say, Phil, you're not on equal ground. Let's look at another 40-year-old and see if you're on equal ground or whatever.
Right.
You compare to 10-year-old, you say, I could, it's like the same idea when, you play basketball, such and so. I play basketball, such and such, I make this 10-year-old, and I'm taller than this 10-year-old, and I just, blow him off the field. But
yes.
yeah, of course you will. But let's get the equal grounds here, and you're with another 40-year-old person, such and such.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then it becomes a different ballgame. I was going to say something else, and I just lost it. Oh.
I'm just going to put some heating on. I'll be 2 seconds.
You're going to put some heating on. It's getting cold there.
Very cold. It's very cold here.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Menza, I tend to be somewhat judgmental too. You have to, you've got to figure out But I was going to say something. There's someone made this comparison to me. This only happened like 3 years ago. Some of this thing, I dealt with a particular person who read my astrology chart and explained certain things to me. And actually, that person was a catalyst for me to begin to move in different directions. She mentioned to me one time simply, maybe you should be writing children's books, and that is not squared with me. I'm like, that's not what I'm about. I know part of this. She said you need to be doing videos. That was the other thing she said. You need to be explaining what you know. You have the capacity to do that. You have that desire and knowledge within you. And I get frustrated because I'm like, why are people so stupid? Just they don't you think logically about certain things? Don't you? So she's like, well, just do it and share it on YouTube, such and such. Do that. Take that chance, such and such. Yeah. She's the one who actually was a catalyst for me to move in that direction. Right. I did not know those things, you see, and it's interesting that when you talk about Aries, there are three signs that stand out to me: Sagittarius, Taurus, and Aries. And Aries is the ram, which is very direct. A ram, if it gets upset with you, is going to plow over you. I mean, it's going to it's going to let you know that you're fucking wrong or whatever. Or you're going to know it, so to speak. And so what happens simply is that's okay because you're expected as a quote unquote person seeing a ram coming towards you to get out of the way.
Yeah.
But there are other particular other animals like that. When you talk about the bull, the Taurus bull is the one who does all the grunting and the hoof, in the soil, making all these weird soil noises and I don't like you at all. I'm going to run over you. But really never does you are again somewhat aware of it and you can get out of the way. But there is another one I'm trying to think. I think it's Sagittarius is the one who is not the goat.
He's the centaur who's armed with a bow and arrow.
No, it's the one that sneaks up on you. It's the donkey.
The donkey's Capricorn. It associates with Capricorn, donkey.
Right. Is that okay? I'm wrong. Capricorn. Sorry. And he's the one that's not going to let you know until it's time for him to do it. And he's going to come out and he's going to do it. He's going to hit you in your behind. And you're not going to know what the hell happened to you. You're like, what happened here? So in other words, those are the three. I was kind of interesting perspective. And when this person was comparing this, I said, well, I can see why I like to be Aries and a Ram because I'm direct. And let's get it out in the open. Let's just deal with it. So to speak. Mr. Menza says I get frustrated with the stupidity of the mass population. Yeah, but that's I think also. You thought the Capricorn was the goat. I've always thought Aries was the goat. But anyway, the point simply is I get frustrated, but I come to the realization simply is not everybody's where I'm at. And then also I realize simply I'm not there yet. I haven't gotten where Phil's at. I'm not ascended. So who am I? Okay. So that's why we dialogue, me and you, Phil, and I've communicated with you for probably the last 4 months, guess roughly that time phrase.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere we've talked privately, me and Phil have in the past. But yeah, um, you know, I've been told by a friend that yeah, I can see you're getting the sword out because she's like, yeah, I can feel the sword here, and you're cutting people to bits here. and, and I'm like, yes, I am, because I just I've got to get it out off my shoulder. I've got to get so the point simply is it's like but I wasn't like this. I was taught all these Christians things. Oh, be kind and gentle, such and such, which I am kind and gentle. But like, this is stupidity. I got to say something. I can't just let this go. And part of that is simply is, um, you know, let's get it out there. See what happens.
Yeah.
Whatever happens,
Sure.
happens, so to speak.
Yeah,
But
that was my attitude as well. That was my
yeah,
attitude as well. Same.
yeah. Don't play games with me. Just if I like I've told you many times, if I say something wrong, correct me.
Yeah.
I want you to do that because I don't want you to say, go back and Brant really is really not that smart after all.
Yeah. That. Yeah.
No.
No.
I'd rather you tell me up front. I'm not embarrassed by that. If it's done in the right way, which
Yeah.
I believe
Sure.
you would do it. But I think it's
Yeah.
critical that. So I want to. I guess I
But
wanted to.
just before, can I just say,
Sure, talk as much as you want to.
there's an expectation with a person like me to think that I know everything about everything.
Right.
I don't. See,
Right.
that's the thing, and there are limitations to that.
Right.
There are limitations. I don't know what's going on around the world exactly. I'm not there. I'm only here. I can only see my own life. This sort of thing,
Right.
and this knowledge and what have you. It's all under the same umbrella. The contents of the Bible, I fully understand when I read it now. So there's a sort of basic principle here of how to record information, and the funny thing is with Ascension, it's such a simple event, and yet it has an enormous amount of consequences that are very specific. And when you spend time on those, you know about those consequences and that nature, so you can convey that nature to other people. But you don't know everything about everything. I don't know anything about geology, for instance. I know nothing about rock strata.
That's not important.
It's not important for us.
Right, I'm taking.
Yeah, so you don't know everything about everything, but you know about your nature, the approach to your higher nature, the lower nature, higher nature distinction, physical, spiritual distinction. That this whole ballpark of information is available to you in this circumstance, but not other stuff, for instance.
Right.
So yeah, just to say that I don't know everything.
Yeah, the other thing simply is me coming from a church background and then going to seminary is that I thought I, had these things straightened out and knew what the Bible was talking about. That is in literal terms. Yeah, I had that pretty much understood until some things began to jar me, and that was basically at my age of 40 when you talk about, and that was a big turning point for me because there was an opportunity for me to go on because I was 2/3 of the way done.
Yeah.
In seminary, and I had a talk with someone, a friend, and they said, "Well, continue to keep on going, so to speak." And I said, "No, I can't do this." So my consciousness bothered me, knowing simply is that I've been lied to myself by others, and I don't want to be lying to other people.
Yeah.
So it kind of bothered me simply as, hey, not this would be great. I have a nice job, so to speak, and basically I'd be teaching people, and I remember as a child, my mom, we would talk about it once in a while before she passed away. And I would say when I lived in North Carolina, there was what we call the front door, the house here, and it was a concrete pillar and some steps down, so it wasn't anything elaborate. But I would pretend I was preaching to the grass, which were people, but I was pretending I was preaching to these people. And I had the Bible in my hand. I was doing this thing, such and such, at a very young age. I don't know, correctly, 5 or 6 years old, maybe 7 years old, Naturally, maybe even maybe even later than that. But the point simply is, I've always kind of thought to myself, I'm glad I'm not a preacher, because in reality, a preacher can lead many people astray, so to speak.
Yes, that's
And
right. Dangerous it is. Yes.
very dangerous deal.
Yeah.
And I saw that people would, you got to go get something to drink. Go get your coffee or
No,
whatever.
no. I was just testing if the radiator, there's a radiator behind me, just making sure it's on. It is on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I know. And again, Phil's. I want to make sure people know this. Phil is here he doesn't have anything to do. So if you want to chime on in some questions here, this is your time to do it because, we're an hour and 35 minutes right now through this deal, but we usually stop it at 2 hours. But Phil said he would talk if there were more questions or anybody was interested. This is your time to ask questions, because he's no one's there. It's just him, and he's apparently had a good night of sleep, such and such, and he's raring to tell us all this stuff. But yes, it's amazing. The idea, the talk, such as you would think, which is all to do with being arrogant. You thought you knew it all at that age, and you didn't know anything except you were lost somewhat. Began to see that, hey, I'm lost. And and this lady who I dealt with told me about these things. I said something else, and she said, yes, you had back to back certain issues that have happened to you, bam, 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 and they were kind of a wake up call. So obviously the universe in some way was trying to get my attention. Knock, knock. No, it's time to wake up. It's time to see things in a different light, so to speak.
Yeah.
Let's see. Mr. Menz has said, yes, we are very fortunate to know Phil. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Definitely. I pray about that. I'm very fortunate even to be here as a human being having a conversation, and that's not to make me feel any better. I look at an humble attitude simply as how did I get here? And actually the funny thing, Phil, I think we've talked about it, 2 or 3 years ago, I was watching you and Steve, such and such, and I bought a couple of books you talked about, and I looked at it and said, not for me, and I just moved on. And it's interesting now later on that, okay, I've tried that, I've tried this, it hasn't worked. So apparently, let's get back to Phil. And I started watching some things that you and Steve were doing with each other, and I just come to say, I think this guy's legitimate, and so let's explore this. And so that's how this all happened. So again, is it me? Yes, but it's also, I would say, my higher self or spirit is helping me to see some of these things. I don't congratulate myself. I'm very fortunate to be here. I'm very fortunate to be conversing with you one-to-one. We have had good talks.
Yeah,
I've learned things from you.
Same.
And I think it's important. And it's a blessing.
Yeah.
It's a blessing. Say, for example, I'll just say this real quick. What if Phil was a Chinese guy?
Yeah.
Well, that would not work too well for us who are English. In other words, us speak English. I don't know any Chinese. So again, it's another blessing.
Yeah. In fact, it's a blessing to me to have spoken to you and Steve, because speaking to you made me write this. Speaking to you, this is where that came from.
Right.
You see, because when I talk to you, I realize what you want to know and what what's going on in your mind, as it were, what your focus is, what you're interested in, what you need to know, etc., etc. And I think, well, I'll put it together in a book. It's that kind of idea, And I have something new to say, so I need a new book.
I've got something to say, so I'm going to write the book.
Yeah.
I think it's funny when you think about it. I don't do the talking. I let my book do the talking.
Right.
It's like the advertisement here in America. I let the yellow pages do the talking. It used to be a phone.
I know.
I let the yellow pages do the talking, such and such.
Yeah, I know one. Yeah.
So, in going back to this, maybe this conversation with what I wanted to share with you is to get an idea. It's not to put these people. That's not what it is. But it is to show what I would say some fallacies that have been a part of people thinking that they've had something happen to them, and they have something has happened to them. Yes, and we've talked about this in the past. And so I'm going to share this conversation as I took it off of the phone, so to speak.
Mm.
And there's this is the comments here. It says, this is mind, that is MIND, is servant to the heart, but mind must die, DIE, into the heart, and intellect can recognize this enough to see the realization. And the next comment is, go here. The unknown is terrifying to the intellect. I've heard those things. I remember hearing that type of thing because the mind is fearful of death. I've heard those things from Richard Rose, so to speak, who was a Zen guy. Terrifying to the intellect. It creates illusions to create certainty. In other words, it wants to feel, it's in control. Intellect is also linked to the ego. And then this is the point that this guy is saying: we need to let go of the ego. The intellect holds the ego in place firmly. Intellect is locked into the external of how we look into the swirling stuff and followers. And let me hold on here. And control.
Can I just interject just before you carry on?
You want to stop? I'll stop.
Okay. I just want to say that there's a lot of assumption in those statements.
Right.
Quite a lot of assumption, in fact, because he's made sweeping statements already. He's just saying the intellect is the ego, which is not true. Effectively, that's not correct. You are an observer. You are an aspect of spirit. You are an individual. You will always be an individual from now on. You cannot say that is your ego as such. Ego is personal identity. Spirit has no identity. So when you become spirit, you are this particular person. So it's like a cross between having an identity and no identity at the same time. Now we're going to get philosophical again. But yet, if you're going to get philosophical, you have to be very specific and discerning about how you use words.
Right.
Because he's using words in a very flippant manner there, I feel. And he's sounding like he knows. He's talking like he thinks he knows everything.
Yeah, there's a lot of generalizations too.
I can see. I can see his words are a bit simplistic. The way he's describing things are a little too simplistic. The first thing he says that you mentioned about the mind having to succumb to the heart. Well, as I said before, the heart was the place of your character in ancient Egypt, and they weighed your heart on the scale to see what your intention in life had been, what your character is, basically, what kind of person you are. And of course, there's a lot to say about that. But the keys to heaven are the heart and the mind that unify together. To say the intellect is frightened of death, well, the intellect can comprehend beyond death as well. It doesn't have to be frightened of death. We can realize there is near-death experience that basically proves that we are continuous.
Yes.
We as beings are literally simply continuity itself. We are eternity itself, and therefore we never actually die. There is no such thing as death because this physical stuff was never really alive, because it's not being, it's doing. It's a process which is doing, not being. So it's not alive. It's just a play that's going on around us. As a comparison between us as being and the stuff around us as doing. That's the greatest contrast and comparison that allows us to understand our being. So when you meet God, you fall in love. There is nothing intellectual about being with God and meeting God. It's not the intellect at all. I wasn't thinking about maths and physics when I was meeting God. I was being in love and nothing more. It was nothing but being in love. And that's the only way we can combine with God, who is so vast and superior to anything else, the supreme being himself we're talking about here. To link with it, to be able to link with that, it must be in the nature of falling in love and being in love, because that's the principle behind everything. Everything is basically love, in a way. Right. So that's the first contact with God. There's nothing intellectual about it. The second key to heaven is the most intellectual endeavor you will ever endeavor to pursue. It really is a thought experiment that you meditate on and you contemplate. I was contemplating continuously for 3 days, and I only stopped to get some sleep at night. When I got up, I'm back sitting down and contemplating, and literally sitting there for 12 hours, not moving, just contemplating these thought experiments until I got it. I didn't know if I wasn't doing it purposefully to achieve anything. I was doing it to understand a statement I'd been given just after I met God. And I realized the statement was powerful and important, because I wouldn't have had it otherwise at that point. So I was pursuing it. I didn't know it would produce anything. By pursuing it, it produced illumination. So I was given the answer, the intellectual tools to produce the cloud of heaven. As a gift. As a gift.
So if you did not contemplate what happened after what took place at Angkor Wat,
right,
that second step, that whole idea probably would never have happened to you.
Exactly. And I can say that with confidence, because there's plenty of people who talk about samadhi, meeting God. They never mention contemplation after the event. They're simply amazed that they actually contacted God,
right,
directly, and that's it. They think, because that's what I thought. I thought after meeting God, that's it. I don't need anything else. I've met God. I've met the ultimate being. That's the greatest satisfaction I can have. Right. I had no idea anything else was going to happen.
Right.
See, so I was surprised with the illumination, and I didn't even know what was going on when that happened. It's only afterwards when I read in the Bible, oh my God, that's the cloud I saw last night. I can't believe it. It can't be. Surely not. I started questioning everything again, starting from scratch. There's a whole process going on here. But you do need your intellect. Yeah, you can't unify understanding without using your brain.
Well, when you went to the second temple, you had the statement said that the mind is
mind is stillness.
Stillness, right? Mind is stillness.
Yeah.
So why would the word mind come up in that conversation with you?
Awareness. They were using the word mind was being used to refer to you, the spirit observer, not the brain. Your brain is not stillness.
So that clarifies something. Okay, so that. See, I was thinking of something. You're using your intellect there, in a way. That was the question. So
well, to be more specific, to be very specific, meeting God is the understanding of truth. So you already understand what the principle here, the idea of divinity and what God is and everything like that. God gives you the understanding by allowing you to experience His nature. So there's a distinction between that moment and where you were intellectually just before you had that event. And there is a gap between those two that you need to cross. The crossing of that gap that you are now going to pursue in your contemplation toward that second key is referred to as the bridge of death. That is the bridge of death, where you take a leap of faith. Are you familiar with Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade?
Yes.
Yeah, so the keys to heaven are expressed in that film. At the end, there are 3 trials. 3 is metaphysics.
Right.
The penitent man kneels, otherwise his head is severed from his body.
Right. He kneels
he shows respect.
Right.
You show respect. You understand that God is supreme.
Correct.
That you are not greater than that. God is great. That's the understanding, and you need to recognize and respect that. And what happens next? Does he take the leap of faith? I think the leap of faith is the second one. So when he's at the edge of a cliff, he thinks he can't make it to the other side.
Right,
the gap is too great.
Part of the bridge is part over there, correct? Part of
the bridge is invisible because it's painted to look like the opposite side of the mountain. So you have to just step out into the unknown.
Right.
And that's a reference to your pursuit of understanding the nature of God in your mind. with your mind, not just your heart, but with your mind, so that your mind and your heart can now connect and become one. They have the same understanding together. Now you're a unified entity.
Right.
Now you have both. You have the compassion, the forgiveness, the nature of God you have. God is forgiveness. You have forgiveness. You do not take revenge anymore. That mentality is completely gone. There is no need for it. And you understand the truth behind the oneness of all things. And in so doing, you literally generate the cloud of heaven for yourself. And that is the greatest gift that God can give you. And now you are the richest man there is. I am the richest man on planet Earth. But you can't see it.
It has nothing to do with gold and silver.
Yeah, there is no physical nature to those riches.
It has nothing to do with material. You say one quick. So, Jimmy, I have a comment from Mr. Menza. I thought ego was identification with the physical - mind, emotions, feelings / the body, etc.
I would say the ego is a sense of separation. It's more to do with your sense of separation and individual identity, as if it is separate. It's the issue of separation, ego. In my mind, that's what it is. That I have to compete.
Right, because
if I'm separate, I have to compete with my surroundings because I'm not my surroundings. Therefore, there's a competition.
Right, so because you're always putting on a show, so to speak.
Yes, it's not just your identity. It's not just your personal identity. There's a greater aspect to this ego, this concept of ego, that has to do with separation.
Because my speculation simply is that some type of trauma happened. You can correct me also in a child. Usually, it happens to us when we're children, and something happens. A certain trauma happens, and we don't know how to handle it as children, and we create. We no longer are the innocent child. We become what I call a way of protecting ourselves in a way and we put on this persona, so to speak.
Yeah, we become defensive.
Right.
Yeah, because the world is harsh, so we need to become defensive.
What has happened to us, what we thought that others were somewhat like us, the child, whatever, or the parents, and we're innocent, such and such, and suddenly it breaks our whole way of thinking, and that trauma also creates this whole dilemma that you create another you become something else. You now no longer are so joyful and sharing who you are. You're now become defensive. What if this person thinks what you ask these questions? Do I do this such and such? No, I don't think I'll do that, because they're going to find out more about me, and they're going to make fun of me more. So I'm going to be a little bit more. I'm going to be closer and protect myself, so to speak.
Yeah. The thing you read out about 5 minutes ago, the statement on your phone. When somebody says you need to get rid of your ego, that's a very flippant thing to say. They need to define. They need to define exactly what they mean by that, because that is not easy. What do you mean? How can you if you say ego is identity, how are you ever going to get rid of that? You can't. It's a bizarre thing to say. It's like saying
it's almost as though you're like turning a switch on and off, and it's like, it doesn't work that way anymore. You're now you're 50 years old or whatever, such and such.
Yeah,
that happened to you when you were 5 or 6 years old, or even younger. So that occurred to you 45 years ago. So how are you going to quote unquote change that?
You can't get rid of yourself.
No.
To say you need to get rid of the ego, it's a very flippant, simplistic way of looking at the nature of. When you find God, you realize God has nothing to do with ego, and so you now identify with that. That's what losing the ego refers to. Effectively, meeting God. God sorts that out, as it were. It's just automatic. You don't even have to think about it, because you realize God has no identity.
No. He's him.
No
he is who he is. If you want to call
God is ineffable, supreme being. Yeah, there's no identity to that, because there's nothing to compare with it.
It's not. It doesn't need anything. I mean, it's all.
Yeah, it's already there. There's no birth or death with God. God is. That's it.
So let me going to continue on here as he talks here. So he says, I don't know how far we got into it. It says, fathers and control. Here we merge into the universal or universe intelligence. Well, what is that? Is he talking about God? It says he doesn't use the word God. So it's, what are you referring to? And he says, have a look at my videos of my talks with my clients that will help you see where I'm coming from. These posts, realization only come beyond the third dimensional, thinking beyond. And I had to click it back off. Then he says, I agree. As I said in one of my recordings with a client, but we don't need to kill the ego now. So this is the person talking back to him. Humans are obsessed with killing. I actually say that in the recording, if we kill something, we create a void, and we need to find a way to fill. Hold on. Fill the ego. All right. In other words, come on, don't do that. The ego, and then we are obsessed with killing. I actually say that in the recording. If we kill something, we create a void, then we need to find a void. Okay, that's what I said. Bear with me. This phone. And then she goes on. She says, I didn't know any way of talking about this without studying. This is a particular person. I don't know if you've ever heard of this person. I've never heard of Meher Baba, B-A-B-A, who has outlined this in Discourses in Mastery and Servitude, whereby the true self is one with God. The eventuality of all paths that can be made quickly with a constant. Sorry, I just want to get to the point.
Funnily enough, what a coincidence! Meher Baba was the guru of Pete Townsend from The Who.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was his guru. He went in about Meher, and in fact, he wrote a song about him called Baba O'Reilly.
I never heard that song, but anyway, go ahead.
Right, great song. It's a great piece of music. But yeah, Pete Townsend, Meher Baba was a guy who took on a vow of silence. He took a vow of silence and never said a word after a certain point. Never spoke. He may have written things down. I don't know much about him, but he's an Indian mystic who took a vow of silence. Yeah, fascinating.
So I'll continue on. You want me to say anything else?
Okay. If you wish, yeah.
Okay. So, and then she goes on, she says, and seeking, obeying, and knowing, becoming a drop in the ocean of love, which is such good news that happiness is all one needs to assume.
Yes.
And then she says, universal intelligence is a good term for it. Baba calls it the oversoul.
Yeah, can do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there are recordings sharing the feelings that awaken our constant connection to the divine. We can only find our way when we feel joy and bliss, then discover the huge gap we live within. How the shadow, our comfort zones, and I don't have the rest of the part of it. And then he makes a comment. He says, the false ego has a death. Doesn't have to be called murder. You are right. Ha ha. And let's see if there's anything else more in this thing. I think that's the last one. Let's see if that is. Yeah, that is it for the conversation. So I'll let. So that's where all this went. This conversation went when I saw this the other night. Actually, I think it was on Sunday night. So
yeah, it's. I find it unfortunate when someone, because this subject is so deep and there's so much to talk about, as you know.
Right.
When somebody makes a comment and says, "Please refer to my videos," well, I haven't got time to go through hours and hours of somebody else's videos, I'm afraid.
Right.
It doesn't work. Just make a statement. If you can't, then don't bother. There's no need to engage everyone all the time. You don't have to leave a comment every time you watch a video on YouTube, for instance.
Right.
You see what I mean? You don't have to get involved.
But this point is simply what I see simply is she's referring to, as I see it, talking here. This person is saying is simply is, it's just a total difference between you and someone else. She is a teacher, but she makes money at doing this. You
Right.
see, so this is a part of her life, so to speak, in sharing this information to people. To
Mm.
me, it tells me simply is, well, okay, so people have to ante up to find out more answers from you. You see, that bothers me. That bothers me
Mm.
much. You see,
Mm.
um,
Mm.
if you're supposedly have all this information, you know it all, or think you do, um, then why are you charging someone? Is not
Mm.
your God good enough or strong enough to quote unquote, if you had experience, will He take care of you?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, if you had I'm not saying you cop out, but I'm saying something's wrong with this picture. It's not congruent. It doesn't add up because
Yeah.
and when I'm seeing this, and this is again we've talked about earlier. This whole idea that people feel like they have to pay something for services. Well,
Mm.
yes, if you want to do that, such and such, but you know, what is the reason for someone charging you? In other words, aren't you? If you want to cheat, if you want to tell the truth, don't you want to tell the whole world without
Yeah.
charging anybody anything?
Yeah.
Let
That's
them
right.
know. I mean,
I agree with that personally. That's
it,
my
that
sentiment
what would
towards
be
it.
that would be what I call a unselfish thing to do. That would be
Yeah.
something that
Yeah.
reveals the heart.
Yeah.
You're making money off someone, and you're not. Who knows? This person will become disgruntled and find out simply later, maybe possibly or not, that it doesn't work. What you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what you've done is you've done a very terrible thing because what you've done, that person has an axe to grind against you now because
It,
you
it, yeah.
You have
It,
not been truthful, or you think you're being truthful, but you're not. You're
mm,
making money, even if you are. Now, I would have a little bit better patience or mercy if you were not charging someone to do this because you have not taken their money from them.
yeah.
But it also gives an illustration simply is what is your dependence upon? Why are you doing this for this particular reason?
Yeah.
Well, you know, did you understand this whole idea of simply is I've got to make money. Really? I mean, I
Yeah.
understand you have to put that, but I'm providing something really special here. Really?
Yeah,
Well,
often people think that that by pursuing their passion and combining it with the making of money, that's a great thing, but it's not always a good idea, especially when it comes to this subject, because it makes you look like someone who isn't going to tell someone the truth if they don't pay you.
well, you also are going to tell someone sometimes what they want to hear.
Yeah, yeah, to make the money. That's right, and it encourages that. Unfortunately,
It
um, it,
does.
it it can be argued that God charges you a certain fee as well to be with Him in the end. In that, you sacrifice your life or you pay with your life because God kills you. But these are just semantics. I could say
Right.
God killed me, but really
Right.
God saved me. You see, if I just say God killed me, people think, oh my God, what something's wrong with God. No, it's just semantics. It just means God
Right.
saved me and took me out of physical nature to show me the truth. That's all. But yes, I paid with my life, you could say, but it's not really like that because the truth is simply available. It's just sitting there waiting for you to find it. It isn't charging you anything. It's just
No,
that
that's what
what it
truth's
takes
all
to get
about.
there. What it
Right.
takes to get there might cost you something
Yes.
personally,
Yes.
but
Yes.
it doesn't require your money or anything like that. It is free.
Correct. Right.
It's totally free. Hmm.
Again, that gives an idea again what I would call that God allows free will. You have the
Yeah.
choice whenever you wanna. You can say, "Chunk it. I don't want this. This doesn't add up to me." Da da da. And there's no hard feelings with God. Well, I'm
Yeah,
going to
that's
blow your
right.
way now. I'm going to zip. Blow your way. No, that's not. But that's the connotation. Because we've been taught this when I was around in church.
Yeah.
God sees everything you do. Yeah, he does. And then well, one day he might just decide, this attitude you get this from people. He may just simply zap you and get rid of you. You'll come, I don't need you around anymore, such and such. I mean, you get all this stuff. People are,
filling out the blanks.
People prey on people with fear.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. There's no need to fear with God.
Enormously. They prey upon others. And we're already under enough fear as it is in the real world. But
that's right.
Prey upon others with fear.
That's right. It can cause even worse fear in somebody because they're talking about God.
Yes.
That's ultimate. That's a serious issue for people mentally to hear that God is going to punish you if you don't do this, which doesn't happen.
See, they have a wrong God.
They often get the wrong idea of God because they're reading the Old Testament, and that the Old Testament God is the Creator, not God, not God's Spirit, but the creative principle. And the creative principle is going to judge you. But all that means is that you're going to be compared with the ultimate creation of God. Have you made this with God yet? Oh, you haven't done that yet. Well, you have to go back and make it, don't you?
Right.
That's called reincarnation.
Right.
It's not about judging you. It's about saying, well, you haven't done it yet, so just go back and do it. I'll help you while you do it. I'll be your higher self and I'll help you. But you must listen to me.
Right.
You must think. You must think in your highest nature that you can. That is you conversing with God as such, in a way. Thinking of the best that you must understand properly. Don't be half-baked about understanding and just accept something because it sounds sort of right. That'll do. Half-baked is never going to get you anywhere.
Well, let me ask you a couple of questions. In the past, in the 60s and 70s, maybe even part of there was some type of what I would call some type of spiritual thing that was taking place in general around the world in the late 60s and the 70s, probably gassed out before the 80s, and it might be before your time. But there was Christian Murdy who was talking about certain things, and as far as I know, he had people come to see him, and he spoke. But I don't think he charged to anybody to come in. I don't know.
Probably not.
I don't sense that was the type of people were fed up. People were fed up with wars were taking place, especially in Vietnam. What was taking place in the 60s. But I don't sense from him. I'm not saying he was the guru. I'm just saying that. But there's another thing that also is really scary. Is this? It's a song. I've already said that one. I already shared that with you. But there's an idea simply is people now, like psychologists and gurus, we open up with these people in a lot of ways that we wouldn't open up with our family or friends, so to speak. It's kind of interesting that dilemma is taking place with what's taking place in our lives that we don't feel comfortable with our family and friends. Maybe that's part of, again, the ego protecting itself, going in, talking with a guru or a psychologist or something of that nature. Do you see that in part of that makeup, or do you see something else?
Something else in what? Sorry, Brent. What exactly do you mean there?
I guess maybe I'm not making myself as clear. I'm trying to figure out simply is we don't share that with our family or our friends that we're close to. We usually go to a guru or a psychologist to spill all this stuff to them, so to speak.
I see. Yeah.
And trying to figure out what is the dilemma. Why is this happening in society in general? Is that part of the psychological opening up with people that they go to experts or think they're experts instead of common people? I don't know. I'm just asking.
Yeah. Well, there's a saying: a prophet is never recognized in his own village.
Yes.
The reason for that is because the village saw him grow up from a baby, and they look at this person, and now he's suddenly talking about God, and they think, well, "Where did that come from? You weren't doing that last week. You can't be suddenly the Messiah. That doesn't make any sense. If someone's in your family, you've seen them grow up from zero, and you know them, and all of a sudden they're saying something. Well, you didn't experience what they experienced, so you don't know if they're telling you the truth or not.
Right.
But if they go out and they meet somebody random, you're a total stranger, but you're saying fantastic things from the word go.
Right.
They're not seeing you as a 5-year-old child who's sucking his thumb or something silly, or doing whatever as a child. They don't see all that. All they see is a fantastic sounding person all of a sudden. So they must be great. It's a completely different perspective and perception, I feel. My family, for instance, had a hard time with what I told them had happened. My sister didn't like hearing it at all. She immediately tried to shut me up as if I was just imagining it, which is understandable.
Right.
Because she can be a bit imaginative, my sister. My dad doesn't give a damn either way because he's very liberal and couldn't care less anyway.
Right.
My mum took it seriously, but then it's my mum, and the boy always has a special relationship with the mum, and she always listens to her boy.
Right.
So my mum listens to me, and she understands we have great conversations. Me and my mum, we have terrific conversations. She's one of those people I can talk to and rely on. She's a fantastic woman. So yeah, my family have taken it in a variety of ways. I've tried to explain. I've shown them my books. I say, look, you just read them, see what you think. I don't care if you think it's rubbish. I don't have a massive ego over it. If you don't like it, I don't mind.
Right.
I can
it's
understand.
not going to break your world. It's not. That's the key. Is just
it
it's
won't break.
Well, that's
it won't break my heart. If you burn my book in front of me, I don't mind. It doesn't matter.
As long as you pay for
it.
I'm just kidding. I was just thinking about it. Here's a book. As long as you're going to burn it, let me, give me the money first.
Yeah.
I was kidding.
Yeah. And some people online, they write comments to prod you and poke you into an argument, which I don't do because I don't care. It doesn't matter if somebody disagrees with me. I don't mind. It's not a problem,
Right.
I do my best to explain. I hope it's clear. It explains itself in the end. This sort of stuff as well. Anyway, I feel.
So that's what I'm seeing here and what I'm talking about. This is not anything to put down this particular person and this thinking, but the point simply is, I see this everywhere, and it's like gobbledygook. It's like people pulling things from the sky and saying, "Oh, yes," and over here and there, and over there, and it's like, what are you talking about? You just create that. You're just making stuff up.
Yeah,
it's all you're positive. You just heard some other guy say something. You say, "Oh, that's now my truth. This over here." And have other people, it just simply goes right over their heads. Just like,
that's right.
But the ones that goes over the head, I feel for.
Yeah.
But the ones who are playing this game, you're playing a game.
Yes.
You are playing a game.
That's right. That's correct. Yeah, I see that a lot as well.
It has become accepted in so many deals with people conversing one another. Oh, that's beautiful. And people are like, oh, we're accepting of that. They no longer are what I would call being discerning about it. I don't know about that. This doesn't fit in. Wait a minute. Where did that come from? Well, I read this such and such. Well, did you read the rest of the book, or did you just read that you like? You see. That's another thing people do. They choose, even if someone is not even a good teacher or such and such, he has a book here, such and such, and you may agree with certain things, but a lot of times you may not agree with him. But then you pull, and this is the same, and I'm like, just like,
yes, you can feel it.
You're like saying, yes, there's a piece of pie here, and there's chocolate is a chocolate cake, but it has pecans on it, but I'll eat the chocolate, but I don't want the pecans. So take the pecans off.
That's right, and they're the most important bit or something. Yeah.
And I think about simply as a boy, there used to be such a thing here in America called cinnamon buns. They would be made, and had cinnamon in and buns on, but they would put raisins on them, and I did not want the raisins on them. So you see, this doesn't go. Now it wouldn't be a big deal, but as a child, you just do stupid things. So yes, Mr. Menzies said wisdom should be given freely.
Yeah.
See,
It's easy to talk. Yeah, you don't have to. It doesn't cost anything to talk.
No.
Yeah.
Mr. Menza asked a question here: do we become the supreme being or a angel?
You become an angel with the supreme being. God is always God. By the way, God is always just God.
Right.
You alone cannot say, "Well, I am God," because you're now in competition. That's an
Correct.
immediate competition. You know, you're an angel. You're an aspect of God. You're they call you a power of God because you now work for truth. You understand truth, so your actions are from the truth, just as God produces action from His own truth, as it were. So you're akin to God, but you are not God alone. You're an aspect of God, let's say, a power of
Right.
God. Hmm.
Right. He speaks here. I don't know who these people are. So Mr. Menza spoke. He said, I don't, Shirna Murdy and John St. Julian and Gurdjieff, Gurudeb.
Go, Jeff.
Well, yeah, I used to follow Gurdjieff. He's the one who talked about, what's the word? The fourth way. It was about that. And also with the gentleman, Spensky was the other guy. And they basically they're in a way there was the beginning of somewhat a particular perspective in psychology. A lot of it to do with I follow that. I followed. He had at one time Gurdjieff had a school in France, and the only people who could come were well-to-do people. They come there, and he would charge a fee. It was like a not a what's the word? It's not. It was like a castle. It wasn't a castle, but it was allow people to come there and they pay. And then he would thought the way of solving this problem with the shutting up of your mind was doing physical work. That was one of the things he said. And so they would do physical work, so to speak. And then Spensky broke away from him, and he had a school in England eventually also. And so they once were together somewhat. I explored those guys. I still have some of the books. They're actually there was a commentaries. Gurdjieff wrote quite a few. He didn't write a ton of books, but he wrote deeper books. But his life was not what we call. His life didn't add up. In other words, he had issues. Okay, so he was pursuing other interests, and that would be spending time with even some of the women who were there with their husbands. The women were totally in awe of him and fascinated by him. He had these eyes that were very projecting. If you see pictures of him, he's a bald-headed guy, but he's got these eyes are very piercing. It just just like stand out. And he was not what I call a very moral person in regards in that way.
Yeah. I'm familiar with that sort of thing. Yeah.
Let's see. Thanks. That resonates with me. That's another comment from Mr. Menza. Okay, he said he stated the statements here. Becoming an aspect of God makes more sense. Yes, correct. Now, you need to take a break. It's been 2 hours and.
Yes, I do actually. Yeah, I need to get a fresh drink and just sort of.
Are you still willing to talk a little bit longer?
Yeah, if you want to. Yeah.
If not, it's up to Mr. Menz is the only one else here.
Right. Well, we can pick up tomorrow.
What's her name? The song, Layla.
Yes.
She wasn't able to. She was. I told her about meeting today and tomorrow, and she said she wasn't going to be able to meet today. So
right.
So that's why she's not here.
Yeah, she's busy at work, I assume. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but she wanted to be here. But she said she'd try to be here on Friday. But I wanted to ask some questions. Come up a lot of times when we talk, and then I don't remember them always.
Right.
Oh, here's a question. Is not fear itself a motivation for you to find truth? This is
Yeah,
just a,
it's one motivation. Yeah, yeah. Fascination and curiosity is another motivation. We are curious beings, like cats. Cats are endlessly curious. So yeah, fear is one. Fear of death is something that makes people pursue knowledge. I remember when Richard Feynman was diagnosed as having cancer. Richard Feynman is a famous physicist,
oh,
and when he was diagnosed, he immediately went out and discovered everything he could about the nature of his cancer, to understand it, to not be surprised by it, which is a certain kind
oh,
of fear. He didn't want to suddenly drop dead, without expecting it, that sort of thing. He wanted to have some control over it. So we like to have some form of control over our
yes,
understandings, of course. Yeah.
right.
And
Right.
ignorance is a form of fear as well. It creates fear because we think there's a boogeyman round the corner when there isn't, or what have you. We
Yeah.
invent things as a result of not knowing. Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Paranoia, for instance, is a form of that. You know.
yeah. There was something else I wanted to ask you. Something is that back to the. This is the one I want to ask, and you made some comments, and if you want to go, you go ahead and take. I'm gonna say the question so we'll have it on board so you'll know. When we go back to the woman, the Gnostic picture of her on that boat,
Mm,
I've been fascinated by this whole her and what is she doing there? What is taking place there?
yeah.
Okay. And with that, you go get something to drink, and I need to go get something to drink myself, and then
Okay.
we'll come right back. Okay. Is that fair
Okay.
enough? And I'm
Yeah.
not everything's going to stay on. It's just I just
Okay.
come back, so you won't have to So I'm just going to get something to drink.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Make sure you didn't have a problem with that. Yeah, glad you're here, Mr. Menza. I will ask him that question. So I'm just going to get something, like I said, get something to drink here. But yeah, it's an opportunity to ask questions today. I mean, whoever's listening, if you got a question, ask questions. We'll be here. It's about 11:35 right now, Eastern Standard Time here in America. But if you want to ask questions, this is the time to ask. You can write them in here. It's very simple. And tell us who you are. Da, 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 da. Okay, I see. You got another question here, Mr. Menza. Yeah, just Phil about meditation help. Yeah. Can Phil talk about his visions of thousands of people? I think he talked about, he mentioned something in the past of doing that, that there were angels here, as well as I recollect. Um, but they've kind of lost their way. But I'll let him explain that more, Mr. Menza. Thanks. Thank you for the questions. Appreciate it. Glad you're here.
I'm just going to look up the source of the William Waterhouse painting, because I think he painted it from a poem somebody mentioned. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's called The Lady of Shalott.
That's it.
Shallott in 1888. And I find this particular art piece painting. I like it. I'm just mystified by it because it's saying something very pointed to me, and I would like to. There are certain things that I've been able to balloon this particular picture up. You know, you can make it larger on your screen, and you can see more of what's taking place here as this particular piece of painting. And my thinking simply with this um, is that there are certain things going on, and there's three candles, which I'd like to explain more about what that's all about, and also that there's one actually lit, and to me, she has this blanket that's actually inside the boat, and then she has a crucifix actually in the top part of the front of her, of Christ on the boat in front of her, on the part of the boat. It's been, and it looks like there's, I'm guessing it's a rosary type of, like something like a rosary type of deal around him, whatever. Da da da. So I'm just kind of curious about these. There are symbols here that's being said in a way, and then there are, with this particular boat on the side, it's like a blanket she has on. There is there are characters or something here. You can see a knight. Looks like 3 or 4 guys on here. One is riding a horse, I think, a white horse. The first one is. Again, it's very beautifully done. It's just beautiful colors. It's it's in that age of probably the Renaissance age, or even before then. And then you see another one here with a looks like a woman, but I cannot tell much more. She's at a castle, so to speak. Looks like she's on the outside of the castle, so to speak. Yeah. And there's another piece, but I cannot tell what that one is. The third one here is on the back, because you see the reefs and stuff, such and such. But then she has in her hand, interesting, on her, so that would be her right hand, she has a chain. She's holding on a chain apart. So I don't know if you can see this. I go to Wikimedia, and it shows this particular artwork of this particular one with this lady, and then she's in the boat, and obviously it's dust. Are you going to leave, Mr. Menza? You going to take off? I know he says thanks, Brant. Okay, I guess.
I've actually got an explanation for the painting in front of me.
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, full explanation.
Okay, from who? Is it from Phil, or is it from?
This is on a website called Artable. Artble. It's artble.com.
Okay.
It says the painting was created in 1888.
Correct.
And it says the Lady of Shalott composition. In the Lady of Shalott, Waterhouse creates a composition resonant with isolation and despair. The dark woods behind the lady and the unkempt reeds in the foreground echo the woman and her plight. The artist creates a balance in the composition by opposing the pale figure of the woman on one side of the painting with the horizon on the other, gently going back towards the hills. This balance enables Waterhouse to paint the longboat in full without the painting becoming one-sided. The use of color, the warm and autumnal color palette used by the artist is reflective on the poem and the fact that the Lady of Shalott is about to die. Although a lot of detail is conveyed in this painting, it is all produced in similar tones, underlying the tragic events unfolding and the ultimately unhappy heroine of the story. The autumnal feeling of this painting is captured by the low-cast light Waterhouse creates. As this image is outside, the artist uses natural light to maintain realism in what could have otherwise become an otherworldly scene. There's more. Hang on a sec.
Okay.
Hang on. The mood, tone, and emotion. Waterhouse really captures a sense of sorrow in this painting, in keeping with Tennyson's poem. It's a poem by Tennyson.
Right. Alfred Tennyson. Right.
The bewildered look on the woman's face, her unkempt hair, both give the image of a woman not in control of her own destiny, a possible nod to the political power of women in Britain at the time. Possible, he says, possible. The dark woodland and sky also add another suppressive element to the mood of the piece, further adding to the idea of a woman suppressed. The Lady of Shalott, natural versus artificial imagery. There's an image of the three candlesticks now. In the pre-Raphaelite tradition, Waterhouse uses symbolism throughout his paintings to add further narrative to the scene. The Lady of Shalott is no exception to this, and the artist uses several symbolic images to further develop the viewer's understanding of the scene. Candles on the boat, two of which are out, symbolize that the end of the lady's life is near. The tapestry of the lady wove in her tower hangs from the side of the boat, illustrating the rest of the poem. The complete absence of other people from this composition also underlines the loneliness of the Lady of Shalott and the fact that her death is now inevitable. The lady is shown about to let go of the chain which moors the boat, symbolic of her release from the tower. The lady's mouth is slightly open, singing her last song in direct correlation with the poem. She stares at a crucifix next to the candles, another sign of her untimely death. Waterhouse always used models in his work in order to create realistic shapes and positions for his figures. Although the artist never specifically mentions who modeled for him in The Lady of Shalott, a model who is known to have been used by him throughout 1888 is a woman called Jennifer Flora. Other models used by Waterhouse include his sister-in-law Mary and a woman named Beatrice Flaxman. And that's the complete rundown of the meaning behind the painting.
All right, here are the questions for me. The first one simply is that there is why is she wearing a white dress? That's kind of to me was sharing something to do with innocence, or she does have a black belt around her, but it's all white. And
normally white represents spiritual purity.
That's what I'm thinking. Right there. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking spiritual purity. The lady is innocent or pure. She's some of us would think simply she's a virgin, such and such.
Yeah.
Okay. But there is obviously her hair is the other thing simply is reddish. Again, it is very striking, her hair, her color. She does have some beads around her neck. And then she has her face is showing in dismay. Why is this happening to me, or something of that nature. And yes, there's no one with her on the boat. She's all alone. Well, that's pretty deal. But I was thinking simply was, in my own thinking, Phil, was that this was like a spiritual deal for her. In other words, I sensed that the candles represented something to do with the Trinity, and then the crucifix on the boat was also meant something also spiritual to me. So I was thinking this was somewhat a little bit different what this other particular person was saying, that she was maybe pressing on and living her life, so to speak. And she was determined to be the woman that she is, meaning that she was possibly a spiritual woman doing the right thing. I don't know. That's just my take on it. So
yeah, I mean the interpretation there is very close to what I'm talking about anyway, and right. There is that the tradition that I talk about is well known. It's not a big mystery to the people who knew about it. And in 1888, there was a massive spiritual movement. Anyway, that people were bringing up the old stuff, the old Egyptian stuff, the old Greek stuff.
Right.
Wealthy people would have their photograph taken dressed as Greek gods and Egyptian gods and all this sort of thing.
Yeah, because even Aleister Crowley did that.
Yeah.
Later on, he would do that.
Yeah, also. Yeah. It was a big deal around 1900, all that sort of thing. Right. People in the West got back into it. They liked all the Greek classics and myths and what have you.
Right.
Because it's so interesting and so relatable to a great depth. But what I'm saying is, I say whether he knew it or not, Mr. John William Waterhouse, his full name, has painted a classic scene of being in the abyss, confronted with the cloud of heaven. The cloud of heaven is the crucifix. It is the Son of God, the true Son of God.
Okay, that's what I was kind of wondering, if this is a spiritual thing going on here. This was, she's by herself, but she's done it on purpose by herself because no one else is interested in what she's interested in, type of thing.
Right.
And then she's on a boat, so she is she's moving towards a direction towards what we call that. I thought of what I would call a movement towards that direction. That like floating along, sort of speaking, not being stationary, so to speak. So she's walking by faith. You would say something if someone was walking on a trail, would kind of give that issue. But also with the boat, also in some ways gives an illustration that she's moving on with her life. This is her purpose, such and such.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you can certainly derive that from it.
And I've looked at his works after you mentioned him a couple of days ago, and I'm just blown away by this guy. This guy is he obviously painted women. Almost all his paintings were strictly either women or either somewhat I saw were children, but almost all of those, and even the children were usually girls, smaller girls. So I don't know, maybe that is something of that nature of chivalry, a woman being of innocence, a woman who refines something, her character, who she is.
She's chaste.
She's chaste, correct.
Chaste, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Not a Jezebel.
No, not a Jezebel. And that's what the white dress makes it. And he has other women who do these things. I didn't realize I thought he was actually, well, where does he get the makeup of actually the face? Because I'm like, that is hard to do. He has different ones of different faces, so to speak. And I'm saying, man, you must be very creative to do that, because you almost have to have some type of models or something or your mother or your daughter or your sister or whatever, what they look like in your memory, and you painted it, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that's what I thought. Man, that is a very deep painting.
Yeah. So some of his other, I think one of his other paintings, if not more, he paints mermaids.
Yes, he does. Yeah, and he actually, I just forgot, there is a man in one of them. I just recall he paints mermaids, and he does something on the sea with a woman looking out at the sea.
That's right.
And this woman here, he's done here, is in other ones. I've seen their face in that also in other paintings. A very attractive woman to me as a man, very attractive lady. I'm not attracted even to redheads, but I'm attracted to this particular one because it's just like, wow, this is a very gentle, like a lamb type of woman, this innocent type of thing. I don't know what else to say, but yes, I was just curious what you thought about that.
Yeah, I was going to say mermaids is a very symbolic depiction. The man wearing a fish suit who becomes basically why the Pope is wearing a fish suit. Right. He represents John. He represents any person in the abyss facing the cloud. And as such, you're a fish in a bottomless ocean. You're compared to a fish because it's your natural place, the abyss.
Right.
So you kind of belong there. And it's because it's an ocean. Well, fish live in the ocean, so we're going to associate you with a fish.
Right.
So a mermaid is like saying this is an ascended person.
Yes.
See, they're half fish, half human.
Yes, right. They're half fish. But would it also be part of what we call the age of Pisces? Would that be also there or not?
That would be a specific time. We've been through the age of Pisces the last 2,000 years. There's not a lot of referring to that as such in painting.
Well, the reason why I say that simply is that I always thought we were still in the age of Pisces, but you're saying we're not in the age of Pisces.
We are. Yeah, we are. We're coming out
that's
of
what
it.
I thought.
Yeah, that's right. Heading into Aquarius, yeah.
There are people who have the idea that, I'm going to say this, it just popped in my head, that, the hard times are over and now it's going to be fruit and honey, type of deal, because we're going into the age of Aquarius.
Right.
What do you
Oh,
have to
God.
say about that? Or is that even true?
Yeah, we are going to the age of Aquarius, and the idea is of the man pouring water out of a pitcher is that lots of knowledge and information is going to come about, and we have the internet, which is quite coincidental. I find that
Right.
quite interesting that correlation is there, and that we do have information pouring out, even if there is a war on information and there's lots of misinformation.
Correct.
We're still getting decent information in amongst that, and you simply have to be discerning about
You
it.
have to be discerning and see what's important and what is not important. Type of
Yeah,
thing.
what works and what doesn't. Yeah, what combines with other things to give you an expanded view and what doesn't.
But do
Yeah.
you see also the opportunity to move up, correct, spiritually? But there's also, as this information comes out, a lot of it's fear-based, and there are many people I feel that are actually following that and are falling into that what I call fear-based um, projection upon them and wanting, as some have said, I don't know if I agree with it or not. It said, well, those who control this or projected this want people to go in this particular mode of being in fear so that we create a fearful society.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, that might be
I
the
don't
case.
know. I'm just
Yeah,
asking.
it might just be the case that when we see certain news or whatever we see in the media,
Yes,
it's only media is only going to highlight drama and dramatic things.
that's what sells.
But yeah,
Fear
because
sells. Right.
it attracts attention
Correct.
naturally,
Right.
and then because of the nature of it, it can create fear as a sort
Correct.
of byproduct.
Right.
Yeah.
Here's a question from Mr. He said, "Does Phil think his meditation help, and can he describe how he meditates? As there are lots of methods." I think I'm gonna. I'd like to just say basically what you've been telling me is simply is that it's contemplation. It's not what we think meditation, getting quiet. Is
Well,
that
yeah, the true nature of the word meditation refers to simply being. Therefore, instead of thinking meditation is sitting in a lotus position, you can have walking meditation.
right?
And walking meditation, you are simply aware of the moment right now when you place your foot on the ground and place it
Right.
flat, and
You're
then
in
lift
the
the other foot. You're simply aware exactly of what you're doing. So you're focusing yourself here now in this moment, and
right.
that's all meditation refers to.
Right. Okay.
It means you're not off thinking, oh God, I wish I
I
didn't
got
do
to
that.
pay this bill tomorrow. I got to do this. I've got
Yeah,
to fix. My car won't start. Or
yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
That's not really meditation. That's just contemplation. But when you meditate, you can not contemplate anything, or you can contemplate things. So simply relaxing into and being here in the moment, I can now think of things that are somewhat intellectual or ethereal, that have nothing to do with my past or future as such. They are contemplations, as it were. But I've established that I'm here now in this moment. I don't need to worry about the past or the future. So that's a meditative state. And the only thing I've ever done in my life, instead of just sitting there in a lotus position, which I can't do because I've got a dodgy left knee, so I can't do that position.
Okay.
I've literally just, for instance, I spent years and years contemplating when I had time to myself. So I'd come back from a night out of drinking, let's say,
Okay.
and it would take me 2 hours to get home. So by the time I'm home, I'm sober.
Okay.
Yeah, and it
Did you
would be
do
like
that on
one.
purpose to do the 2 hours to basically to get sober?
Well, no, I used to go out to northwest London, which is the other side of London. It took me a good 2 hours to get home, and I'd
So
get
you
home.
walked the whole way.
No. I take transport like train,
Okay.
and then I'd
Yes,
have my
okay.
bike.
Wow. Okay. You had some guts to go by yourself, so to speak. Even
Yeah. So then I come home, and because it's all quiet and nobody's going to disturb me, now I can sit on my sofa. And I read something in a book about, I don't know, maybe I read something in the Bhagavad Gita, and I heard Krishna talking about Arjuna and attacking his cousins because they're on a battlefield. But
Right.
really, it's about Arjuna overcoming his physical nature. So I think, well, how am I going to understand that the use of metaphor there? So I'd sit back and I'd just think, right, metaphor. What is metaphor? Metaphor is an association. It's a sort of a similar story that conveys the issue of the reality, but in an alternative way. So let me contemplate that. And how many other forms of that have I encountered? Well, there's the game of riddles with Bilbo Baggins and Gollum in the cave. So now I'm going to start thinking about their riddles. And then when I realize they're telling riddles like that, I might think, oh, I heard something in the Bible that's very similar to that. And now I'm thinking about what's in the Bible. I'm just sitting back thinking of all these things, not moving. There's no wish to move.
Right.
I'm literally in my mind, and I'm churning through things and just contemplating and trying to understand why people do things. What's the point of a metaphor? Well, it conveys great information very quickly. It's immediate. It's a bit like a picture. A picture conveys 1,000 words instantaneously. Now I'm thinking of pictures. So yeah, how many other pictures can I think of that convey things? Oh yeah, this conveys that. What about a picture of Jesus Christ holding his 2 fingers up like that? What does that mean?
Yes, what does that mean?
Fingers have associations with the planets. That's Jupiter and Saturn, but that doesn't tell a regular person anything.
No.
Why would he put his 2 forefingers together? Because he's saying that he is the unification of spirit and energy. That's what he's saying. I am the unification of spirit and energy. This is called a mudra.
Yeah, he's already saying in that way about he's ascended also.
I am the product of ascension.
Right.
Yeah. And there's a cross behind his head, and it's all illuminated because that cross is what he actually looks like.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I had no idea about that
before.
Know that
till you just said no. Right.
Yeah, but then I'd often contemplate what I heard through Christian religion because it was so. I mean, look at the size of the Bible. Look at the size of that book. There's an awful lot of information in here. It must come from somewhere. So I'd compare what I'm reading in here, for instance, with real life. And I think, well, they say in spiritual terms, you should meditate this amount of time. And I'll be thinking, well, I spend all my time at work. I haven't got time to do that. So what else can I do? And what is the point of all this? What's the point of all? So I'd often extrapolate. A lot of extrapolation, which is a mathematical trick with series and sequences. How do you add the numbers between 1 and 1,000,000 in a few seconds? There's a technique to do that in just a few seconds. And I start thinking about speeding things up and where do things go? If I live my life like this, where will it go? Where will it take me? If I join a band and I get involved in all the rock and roll lifestyle, I will go and into an early grave. There's no question. I don't want that, so I'm not going to pursue that. I'm going to think, well, what else can I do with my life that is actually beneficial? Well, do I need to do something with it? Shall I do something just to earn money and I'll just sit back and contemplate when I get time off? I'd examine all these things, all these different things that came to mind. Sometimes I'd sit there for 7 hours.
Wow.
7 hours, and I'm just thinking, going through a whole load of stuff. And then if something came out of it, I'd write it down. And if something important came up, I'd write it down. And then I'd read a religious book and I might find exactly the same statement in the religious book. And I start to correlate. Oh, I see. My thinking was the same as this. What else are they saying? Well, they're saying something else. Well, let me think about that now. And what about this idea of forgiving everybody? How can I do that? What if somebody stabbed me and I've gone to hospital and I've had to have stitches and it's going to take me 6 months to recover? How do I feel about that person now? Well, I think I'll avoid them in future, but do I have any animosity towards them? Well, what was the purpose of their stabbing me? Did they hate me? Why did they hate me? I wonder if in their youth they had some kind of trauma. So then you end up thinking about psychology, or yes. I might see something in the science program about black holes and that the time is zero around a black hole. So I think, well, what does that mean? How can that possibly be in the universe where time is passing everywhere? Things are changing. How can you have zero time in a place where there is nothing but time? So you start contemplating that. And there's just a small handful of subjects that you can go around with like that. So that's basically all I did. I spent most of my time contemplating when I had spare time. Trying to find connections between things. Christianity says that there's God. Well, can
Right.
physics get there? I wonder.
Right.
Is there anything about the
Physics
universe?
have an answer for that. You know.
Yeah. One thing leads to another. Yeah, I followed my nose, basically. Followed my nose.
I think me and you have talked about this either maybe with Steve, maybe with me. We had a personal conversations before we did any of this stuff here. This is a question again from Mr. Menza. He says, "Can Phil talk about the visions of thousands of people he said are here to help us? Are they enlightened? Are they enlightened also?" And I thought you used the word angels in that reference, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
You thought that they were here, but I'll let you answer the question.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest surprises that came to me. That was exactly 3 months after the Illumination event. So the Illumination was December 2014. Nothing happened afterwards until March 2015. I literally just came home from work at 6 o'clock. I put my keys down. I was about to close the door behind me when what I thought was I thought somebody had planted a firework on me, or a banger of some kind that was timed to go off, because there was a sudden explosion from my chest.
Oh,
okay. Yeah, you couldn't hear anything, but it just went bang like this, but there was no noise. So I actually felt it. It was a sensation of explosion, not a noise of explosion, which took me by surprise. And it turned out to be, it came from inside my chest, and it seemed to expand outside of me instantaneously. And it was an instantaneous image, a three-dimensional image that was surrounding me now, of a vast crowd of people that all looked perfectly normal, like human beings. As soon as it came out, all the information associated with that crowd came with it. And it was a rush of information that was very, very overwhelming. Because the information was that these are all the people that have come as visitors to planet Earth. They've all incarnated. This is what they look like right now on Earth.
Okay.
I could see everybody crystal clear. Everybody was clear, but it was a vast crowd. So, you can't remember the faces as such.
But you could tell there were individuals within this crowd. In other words, you could tell.
Yeah. Male, females, all ages. There were young people, there were old people. There was everything you can imagine, from different nationalities. Some brown, some black, some white, some yellow, etc., etc. A whole range of people, like standing in an open air festival with thousands of people around you, exactly like that. But there was a gap between me and them, and it was 5 feet in radius. I was in my own little circle, and it was about 10 feet 10 feet diameter circle with just me standing in the middle, and everybody who was closest to me was standing on the periphery of this circle. Every single person in the crowd was facing me for some reason. They were all turned towards me. And I got the impression that I was some kind of leader. And that all these people were visiting angels, and they'd all experienced other planets. They'd been, to heaven and back. They'd done everything. And now we're all here to generate a better planet, a better experience on this planet. Everyone giving their 10 cents worth, as it were, with all that experience that they've got. And the number I got, there wasn't a specific number, but it was a statement, and it was thousands and thousands and thousands. This is a reference to the number of them, and there were thousands of people in this crowd. I mean, I couldn't even see the end of it. It went off into the far distance. There were so many of them. I was shocked at the number of people. So I started looking at the ones who were closest to me, and I was facing a certain direction. I didn't even look at the people behind me. Right in front of me were two very prominent people, and on my left was a woman, on my right was a man. I can tell you exactly what the man looks like to this day. He was bald on top with black hair around here. He actually looked like a character from a cartoon called South Park. With glasses. He was about 55 years old, nearly 60 years old. He had very boring clothes, very normal, boring. So he had a cardigan. Very regular sort of middle-aged person's trousers, like suit trousers that are comfortable. I've never seen him before. I don't know who he is. I had no names. Nobody had any names. I didn't know what they were called. I knew that I knew every single one of them. And the funny thing is, the woman in front of me, just to the left, immediately in front of me, was in a certain pose. And her pose reminded me of a gladiator, not an old Roman gladiator, but the modern fun sort of games program that we had in the 1980s called Gladiators. And they're basically like superheroes, and they stand there in certain poses, you know, because they're playing.
Look like, you know, like they got their hands crossed or whatever, or got
Wolf man is like this. Rah, he's in this pose like a wolf, and this young lady had a certain pose. It was as if she was ready to go. I'm ready. Let's go. I got that impression from her. Her face was a total blur. I couldn't see any of her facial features. Her eyes didn't exist. There was no nose. There was no mouth. But I could see the outline, the exact outline of her face. And she had a very, very unique jaw, a very unique shape to her jaw. And I remember that. She had lots of curly hair. And she was very robust looking, very athletic looking.
Okay.
And as I'm looking at her, and I'm looking at her face, I'm seeing this just a blur. I can't see her facial features. And she's the only one who has no facial features. I don't understand that, I was thinking at the time. Right. But as I was looking at her, it was blatantly obvious for some reason that she is what is referred to as my best friend. This is my best friend. So it's as if I'm looking at my best angel friend from beyond, who is now incarnated on earth. And this is what she looks like, but I can't see her face. That's very strange, I thought. Everybody else's face was crystal clear. She was the only person I couldn't see clearly. And it took quite a while. I mean, I thought afterwards, it sort of faded after about 10 minutes, this image. And everything went back to normal. And afterwards, I thought, well, maybe I'm going to meet some of these people. What about these two people in front of me? They're very prominent. Surely, that's my best friend. I've never seen this person before in my life. I don't recognize them. There's nothing about them that's familiar at all. How can they be my best friend? So I was questioning these things. And it turns out this young lady actually came past me at my work, where I work, 4.5 years later.
Yeah, because you were sharing that with Pierre.
Yeah, this is her. She actually walked past me at work. I didn't even know at first. It took 4 months after that for me to figure out that that's who she was. But she was playing games with me.
Yeah.
In real life, when she came past me, she was playing a game with me. I think somebody had hired her to come down and distract me because she's extremely attractive, this young lady.
Right.
And the funny thing is, and I didn't know this before, but she prevented me from seeing what she looked like when she turned up physically. And I didn't get to see her face, but I saw the profile of her nose. And her nose is exactly the same as mine.
Okay.
Yeah, she walked past, but as she went to a shop, you see, and I was on the plaza, and she walked past me on the plaza heading towards the shop. When she came out, I was now standing with my boss. We're not allowed to approach the public at work, you see, at all. We cannot engage them under any circumstances because of their mental health issues. So it's too dangerous. So we have to stand back and ignore the public. So as she was coming back out of the shop towards me and my boss, she started turning her face away from us. But she carried on coming towards us, and she was about 10 feet in front of us. But she turned her face completely away like that as she came closer. And my eyesight isn't very good, so I couldn't tell what she looked like. But I leant over like that, and I caught the profile of her nose, and it was exactly the same as mine. And I realized if the center of her face looks like mine, she's going to look like me, this girl.
Okay.
Yeah, and then she walked off, and I didn't see her for 10 weeks. But she was on foot, so I thought, well, she must be local, so I'll probably see her again, and maybe I can have a better look at her next time. Because there's something familiar about her. I didn't know she was a person in the hologram then. Then she turned up in December. This is a fellow angel we're talking about. Yeah, a fellow angel. These are angels.
So you know this person was so you understand what you're saying, that these fellow angels are You're saying, are they fallen? Is that what you're saying?
No,
Here?
not at all. They're simply
Okay.
the one. These are simply the people incarnated on Earth, and they're here to help things. They're here to bring the Earth out of its ignorant state, let's say.
Okay.
Dolores Cannon speaks about this, and she talks about 3 waves of volunteers, and I would agree with that because the number I got was a statement of 3, thousands and thousands and thousands. That's three statements of thousands. That
Right.
sounds like 3 waves. It's
Right.
very similar to what she says. Anyway, that young lady turned up again in December. And she turned up with her coat in an overcoat in December in the cold morning. It was very dark, and she had her hood up like this.
Oh.
You know South Park, the cartoon.
No, I don't. I didn't watch.
Okay. It's all little kids. They're in Canada, so it's cold. So they've always got their overcoats on with their hoods like this, and all you can see is their eyes.
Yeah, I remember that part. I just never watched it all. I thought it was kind of crazy when I was a kid. I just thought,
So yeah,
I'd rather watch Tom and Jerry or Mickey or what's his name? Those cartoons. Well, the cartoons from the 70s and 60s, but they were different type of cartoons.
Same. Yeah, I like those. Yeah.
They're a little bit, what's his name? Bunny Rabbit. What he's saying? Rabbit, Bunny Rabbit, whatever.
Bugs Bunny.
Buzz Bunny. That's what right.
Okay, yeah.
But but what you were saying simply is that she was almost like acting like a spy or something.
I think somebody paid her, and she unwittingly came down to attack me with some magic. She dumped a magic spell on me. I won't go through the details of what happened when she walked past because there was an interaction that was very unusual. But you see, to answer Mr. Menz's question, when a person incarnates on planet Earth, it's so dense and heavy and goodness knows what, and we can go through all kinds of trauma. It can take years to learn to get over your trauma and to learn the principle of forgiveness, because it's the principle of forgiveness that allows you to ascend your trauma. So even an angel coming into Earth can fall. They can fall into physical nature and succumb to physical indulgences in their youth. But because of their previous experience, they'll get over these things in a better way than someone who hasn't been to the height of the top of the mountain yet.
Right, has not ascended. Right, correct.
Yeah, it's much easier to deal with these things. Unfortunately, because we're angels coming to Earth and there's such a demonic content on this planet, there is an effort to prevent us from coming together and unifying again and all this sort of thing. So there's this kind of war, a spiritual war on this planet against evil and good as a result. Yeah, so even an incoming angel can go wrong for 5 minutes proverbially, but they'll probably be able to pull themselves out of it anyway. And she's only 37 or 40 years old. There's plenty of time for her to get over her youth, because she obviously has a traumatized youth. This person, you can tell there's something about her that she's really angry. She's a very angry person, this young lady. And I only saw her in December. And then that was basically, I saw her 2 times before, but she basically fobbed me off and ignored me, and I've not seen her since. Apparently, according to intuitives, the young lady is now obsessed with me, and she's permanently watching me, constantly watching me on YouTube. And therefore, I've put out little messages here and there to try and get her to communicate with me, because all she has to do is email me. And I will talk to her, because I don't hold any animosity towards her at all. I'll forgive her of anything. It doesn't mean I want to spend time with her if she's a nasty piece of work.
Right.
You see what I mean? I won't give time to that, but I certainly talk to her and see if everything's all right and if I can help, because she's supposed to be my best friend. But I can't do anything with it at the moment because I have no idea who she is or where she comes from. So that's the status at the moment. And she's the only person in the hologram that I've actually encountered that I know of.
Oh.
See, as far as I know, I've met plenty of people over the last 9 years that I would say, yeah, that they're an angel. They're an angel, definitely. There's plenty of them. But yeah, that to answer Mr. Menz's question, that was, yeah.
let's see. There are. Yeah, we asked that question. What about when we? Okay. I got a question now. I'm trying to figure out why I wrote this question down. I'm going to state it to you. Why? Let's see. Sorry. What about those who will lose their salvation? And I don't know where I got this. Are you still in love with God? And do people really lose their salvation? But I'm trying to figure out why I wrote this down. I know I was in bed writing these questions. I think it was. Maybe it's something I watched. um, I've always emphasized this particular verse that you talk about somewhat in my own thinking. Ask, seek, and knock. This is like a divine perseverance, that is, never giving up. In other words, you're asking God to help you in this trek you're on, and I'm asking, I'm seeking whatever I think is true, and I'm knocking, which means to me is very much a persistent attitude. Hello, I'm here. Hello, please answer the door. Here, knock, 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 knock. I get that meaning from that particular verse, such and such. I was thinking. The story of Jonah and him being. This is all, a story. That's all it is. It's not something a fact, which people and the people who are Christians believe that that's some type that happened. I'm like, no, it didn't happen. But symbolism there, actually, because he had an issue with. He was commanded by God to, quote unquote, to preach to these people in Nineveh. They were supposedly bad people. And he refused to do it. And eventually he decided he's going to take off. And eventually he gets swallowed. He gets on a boat, and that boat is, basically it's going to, he knows why they're having a storm. And, I think he even jumps overboard. So anyway, the point simply is he gets swallowed by a so-called fish, whale, supposedly, whatever. But he's there for 3 days. Well, naturally, that is the metaphysical part there. It's the three, naturally.
That's right.
I see. Right. So can you explain a little bit more, elaborate more about that particular story?
Yeah. It's very, very simple, the story, really. I mean, what you've got there is the idea of destiny. If you meet God and everyone around you doesn't know about God, you are obliged to tell them about it. You're obliged. If you don't, why are you not telling them? Because this is what they're trying. This, without knowing it, this is where they're going as well. So it's a good idea to tell them about God, to help them with that. And that you are there to do that. And it's as if by meeting God, there's an inherent commandment to tell people about it.
Responsibility.
Yeah, you have a responsibility to share that information and knowledge with other people, to confirm for them and help them. Otherwise, what are you doing? I mean, why would you be here otherwise? If you're not going to do that, there's not a lot of point for the rest of your life.
Yeah, what is
if you're saved, the rest of your life is unnecessary.
Right.
In a sense.
But you have the opportunity now, if you have all this wisdom and knowledge, you can explain it to other people and share it with others so that they can see something different about you or whatever, and then they have some more understanding about what's going on. So it's like a puzzle being put together, so to speak, for them.
They can share in your inheritance as such.
Right.
And this is one of the messages of God, is that the sharing, abundance of sharing, and the sharing of abundance, that is divinity. This is a fantastic thing. It's the point of our being here. Therefore, why would you not open your mouth and talk about it?
Right.
See, so
we have the parable of the what is it? I will bless Jesus. He talks about I will bless so many times. I'm trying to. It's three different people, three different things, and investing on something like you use your money wisely. It's not
Are
money,
you,
but it's
are you talking about the talents, the three
talent. Yeah,
servants
that's
with
what
talents?
right. And then one
And
it doesn't, he squanders. In other words, he never he buries it. He buries it. Yeah, he says, "Well, I'll bless you 5 times or 10 times or whatever it is." What is referring to that? Is that spiritual knowledge in some way?
yeah, well, what you're hearing there is what you're going to do with your life. Are you going to waste it? Are you going to squander it? Are you going to not develop yourself? The guy who buries the money is somebody who never changes,
Ah, I
never
kind of
develops.
didn't know for sure. He was
Yeah,
he was, he was taking the
from
safe way out, so to speak.
yeah, well, yeah, he
He wasn't
he
going
he,
to take a chance on things, if you know what I mean. So,
he doesn't develop himself in any way, shape, or form during life. He doesn't transform. So he's not going to find salvation because he doesn't invest himself in himself.
yes,
The person who squanders it is just someone who lives through life and never derives any spiritual benefit from it. Someone who
right. He
pursues
never,
physical pursuits.
yeah. So the person never actually moves up the ladder.
Yeah. And the third one is the one who invests in himself, and he brings and he produces a great crop to offer to God as a result. That's someone who finds ascension. So they're just different ways of looking at what you're going to do with your life. And these are the three basic ideas of what you can do with it. You can pursue your physical life for its own sake. You can ignore it, but never develop and just be very simplistic. Or you can do the opposite of all that, and you can develop yourself towards your own salvation. So it's a spread of potential for human life, basically. That's all that is.
Would you say just simply is that this is a word you'll say working out your salvation? In other words, you're with God. In other words, there. This is a whole epitome of what we call Augustine. When he would say simply is that Augustine would say simply this is all grace.
Yeah.
And he would say simply is that basically God does all this, and I don't agree with that particular perspective. I mean, I agree with it in a lot of ways, but I don't agree with it.
Right,
And
but that's a semantic statement that might put you off. It might be, you might think he's saying that God is some separate entity who influences you all the time until you find him. When that's not the case. When he's saying that your highest thinking is what's going to get you to your salvation.
okay,
That, to me, that's how I interpret what he's saying there. God will help you, yeah. When you think and contemplate, that will take you to your understanding. Contemplation leads to understanding.
right.
And God is the perfect understanding of being. So in a sense, it's true what he's saying there. But it depends how you take it, because God is not some separate entity that prods you all the time. Oi, oi, oi. No, it's not like that.
Right. Hey, I need your attention here.
Yeah. What are you doing? Yeah.
Let us go. I got things to do. Hey. I need your attention. It's like, go away.
Yeah.
Well, the idea, I'm going back to my seminary days, and like I said, I think I've explained to you when I was at seminary, the big crusher one that actually affected me was Augustine, and the other gentleman was Pelagius, which all we know about Pelagius is what Augustine refers to him, and the letters that they write each other. And Pelagius is a guy who comes from England. He's a monk. He arrives in Rome, and he's completely flabbergasted at what's going on when he's there. Um, in other words, these people who claim they were Christians, and this is all, I think, in a literal interpretation is what I'm looking at as I see it at that point. I don't know. Anyway, this as I go through this simply is he's like, oh, we're under grace. God doesn't see us. He doesn't see us sinning. We're okay. And the monk's saying, where's this coming from? And they say, well, Augustine's teaching this stuff here in Rome, and maybe you should talk to him, such and such. And so eventually Pelagius and Augustine are talking about this whole issue of these issues. And Augustine, actually, his background is that he was a Manichaean. He's a follower of what we call Prophet Mani, who actually, and I think we've talked about it off script, but basically he was talking about what I would call the duality, so to speak. My flesh, I want to do what's right, but yet I indulge in my flesh, so to speak. So there's this whole idea. The body is bad, the spirit is good, which is
Right.
in reality, in some ways, simply speaks about what Alvin talks about, Kuhn talks about, is the flesh, which is the thing that actually we struggle with all our lives. Either it's the passions, being younger, such and such, wanting this or whatever. It wants us to gravitate our own selfish needs or wants. That changes later in life, and then we have the passions now of simply is I want this and that, and I'm going to put on a persona, be somebody else. In other words,
Yeah.
someone has to have all that type of thing coming along.
Yeah.
Eventually, what I'm trying to say simply is that I believe, or I have believed in the past, that basically Augustine brought in that attitude, brought that from what I call from what he studied and from Manny, he brought that into Christianity, supposedly. That was the literal interpretation I took. So that's the reason why I began to move away from Augustine in that regard, because Augustine is, I make this very clear in some of my videos long ago, that Augustine is considered the father not only of the Protestant churches, he's considered the father of the Catholic Church, and he has had enormous impact even on the Orthodox, the Eastern Orthodox Church, which split from Rome in the 1100s, 1200s. Anyway, the point simply is, I see what I actually I want to tell you. I appreciate you suggesting this guy, Alvin Boyd Kuhn, because I enjoy reading his books. I because he's talking about scripture, the whole, what's going on. And so that gives meaning to what I'm seeing here and what he's sharing, and it just like clicks with me. Just bam, yes, that makes sense. That's yes. So I understand. So part of me simply is that I now understand part of what Augustine's talking about somewhat. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's not literal, kind of thing. I mean, it is, it's true, but anyway, Augustine is considered, like I said, a very major influencer on Christianity, immense.
Right.
You wouldn't call someone, in fact, there are churches in the Catholic faith that didn't name themselves, Saint Augustine's Academy or Saint Augusta, that type of thing. So, but, I was somewhat fortunate in my life in ways that I visit different churches because my parents went to different churches. And when we talked about that, being in a Nazarene church, being in a Dunkers church, which is a Brethren church, being in an independent Baptist fundamentalist perspective church, and also being in a Presbyterian church later on in my life. So I've been in 4 different what we call denominations. So I'm getting the fundamentalist viewpoint of hell when I'm 4 years old. When we talked about that, I'm scared to death. I'm scared to death, and I run to my dad. What are you talking about? Me going to hell? You see, and then and I'm in my life that way till a certain point, until my parents were actually thrown out of church because he disagreed with the pastor. So we went to a Nazarene church, which was more emphasis on the spirit. If you don't know that, Nazarene is a byproduct of the Methodist Church, which would be part of John Wesley, and that has enormous impact in England, in your country.
Yeah.
And then the whole idea simply is that we get in Nazarene, then we go out, and then we come to where we move here, and where suddenly we start going to Nazarene church, but it's not conducive to my dad's thinking. Somehow something happens, and we go to a church, what we call Dunkers. And Dunkers believe in, quote unquote, baptizing people 3 times: the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Right.
So, one time. And their whole idea is simply about discipleship. Also, there's a fellowship of brothers, men washing each other's feet. Same way with anyway, I'm going all over the place here, such and such place. I'm probably going to have to go here in a little while too. I've got to do some things here. I didn't realize it would be this long, but anyway, that's cool. But if you got questions, again, you can ask them. I'm not leaving yet. But why my take here simply is I was very fortunate that in some ways I got a gamut of all different teachings, okay, of different ways. And eventually I
Mm,
go to what I call a associate Reformed Presbyterian Church theological seminary.
mm,
And that's where I took classes in church history. And I actually had a professor who went to England for his seminary training, and he was the one that did patristic history, which is all early church history. He was a brilliant guy in a lot of
mm.
ways, and I he was the one that taught these classes. He taught early church history, and he's now somewhere else. But the point is, he went to Aberdeen. I don't know if you know where that's at. So I think it's in Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's Aberdeen. But anyway,
Yeah.
um, he's um, he's no longer there at that seminary. He's elsewhere. But the point simply is, we had a small class of us there. It's amazing when you think about church history. And there were three basic areas of the school. They were training pastors to be preachers. And then you have what you call the area, what we call Christian education, which would be going into being a teacher eventually in a school, in a Christian
Mm,
school. And then
mm,
someone who's pursuing church history, either for learning this or going on and being a professor at either a college that is a Christian college or seminary, so to speak. So
mm.
that's how it worked. Um, but I was I'm glad I went there, but I learned a lot there. I'm glad I did continue to go into that. Um, One of the things that struck me, one other thing, and it was is to do what I call systems of what we call theology. So man has come up with a clever way of actually making a systematic theology of what they think God is. So
Mm,
they go on extremely in who is the person of Christ and who is God, and
mm,
about the last day, supposedly such and such eschatology. What
mm.
is salvation? What is sin? And you basically said simply sin is being, I think you said the word unconscious, not being conscious.
Effectively, is doing things that cause consequences that are unbeneficial through ignorance. Normally through self gratification or just something you want that you don't realize the consequences of. It's kind of unenlightened activity, sin.
But it is not based upon you being good. In other words, there's this whole idea Christians that are people are saying, I'm being good. So I don't go drinking, I don't dance, I don't,
No, it's nothing to do with that. It's about
yeah,
whether, yeah,
right,
it's if you
right,
meet God, you don't sin anymore because you know, so you don't make any mistakes about that.
right.
So
But what
you
I'm saying,
behave accordingly.
right, what I'm saying is simply is a lot of people think, and this goes back to what I was reading part of what you were saying in your book, the perspective is simply is trying to be good,
Mm,
meaning people are, and this is bought into somewhat Christianity, maybe not, but there are people who actually are doing the work. They think they're doing the work, but what
mm,
they're doing simply is, I'm just being good. I don't do this.
yeah,
I don't smoke marijuana.
right.
I am I don't dance. All these things that basically are what I would call are a stumbling block.
Indulgences, you mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's only because, in my mind, it's only because these indulgences do not produce spiritual favor or spiritual ascension. That's all. That's
no,
the only reason that they're dead ends. You can
but
do them. I can have a drink, I can have a smoke, whatever. But I
right,
know what it is. I know where it starts and stops.
yeah, you
I'm not.
have a self control about it.
Yeah, I'm not going to now invest my time in alcohol because it makes me happy. And that's not the purpose of anything really.
Right.
That kind of fake happiness, to forget about your cares. No, you need to deal with your cares because they produce your spiritual awakening. What you really
Yeah,
care
what
about.
I'm trying to say simply is that there's this, this is no longer the framework of it used to be. Because I'm older than you, I'm 63 years old, but this
Mm,
was the way people thought many years ago.
right.
I don't buy anything on Sunday. I don't go to the grocery store. I don't buy gas. My dad would actually religiously
Yeah.
would go get gas on Saturday, so there
Yeah.
would not da 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 da. That
So they've got a slate.
correct.
Here's my slate. There's a tick. Sunday, I didn't do anything bad on Sunday, so I got a tick. That's me in favor with God now. Yeah. And next week I'll do the same, so I get another tick. Like in school when you get a gold star. I've got a gold star from God. Look, I haven't done anything bad yet.
But you can see the whole idea. We were talking. This is interesting, but this is what my dad. We would never go if we needed light or we needed gas in the car. It would be either Saturday night or whatever, or it'd be on Monday morning or whatever early. That was the way he thought. That was just the way he grew up. He grew up in a very fundamentalist conservative background to the point that he believed in a literal hell. And I think that was the whole thing. You sent this particular video to me about about this lady, which because I watched it talking about near-death experience, that she was a Catholic, and immediately I noticed that some particular people marked it. I could sense the base. Oh, it's because she's a Catholic. I'm like, it has nothing to do with that. It's just so I'm gathering from what I watched here is to do with your thoughts about what you think the end life when you pass away. That's what she created. Is that correct?
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much. She didn't know what to expect, effectively, yeah. And she was the one. She was the one who got herself out of those situations.
She did, but she went through a lot of hell to do it. Because she said she heard the devil. They were laughing, and it was a place that she smelled. She said it stunk, and it was hot. And then she got on a wall, somehow got out of there. And then this guy was controlling her. Says, you need to do such and such, da da da. This will be your way out. And she found, no, this is no way out. I want out. I don't want to be a part of this. Next thing she's out in the middle of the cold weather, having rags on, such and such. And eventually she gets to heaven. Yes. But it's not. And this happened to her. She's like 70 some years old now. And that's what she did this video. And this happened to her 30 some years before she experienced a near-death experience. And it was remarkable that you sent that to me because it kind of hit home with me how we're taught to even fear death. And I understand simply is that the spirit or God takes away that fear when you do die. I don't know if that's correct or not. I'm just speculating. That there's no spirit, there's no fear of death at that moment.
That's right. There's just nothing to say, well, I'm dead. A lot of them don't realize they're dead, and they think they're dreaming or they're in a new circumstance that they don't understand how they got there. There's no I'm dead. That only comes after when they realize that, I'm not in my normal life, actually. So maybe I've passed on. Right. Maybe it's like this now. So there's always this continuity to our existence. It depends on what state you exist within. It's down to you and your the way you treat your existence, the way you treat yourself, your self-compassion, your personal development. Are you dying in ignorance, et cetera, et cetera? I mean, it all depends on the individual, really. Brant, I was going to suggest that we break off because it's no one's going to watch a video that's over 3 hours long, dude.
Well, I thought, it's true. But I also, correct. But I was just, it's like a free for all because I said I didn't get a chance to meet with you this Monday.
Yeah.
Out, so you said you had plenty of time.
Yeah.
Let me ask you another quick question before we go. Would it be better to do the show tomorrow later in the day for you? Meaning simply is that maybe it's conducive to what I call the audience here. I'm guessing this, Steve did a conversation with you at 12 o'clock here in America, and you were 5 hours later, so it's 5 o'clock. Would that work for you tomorrow? Would that be work? Or not?
Any time works for me, to be perfectly honest, because I'm simply available all day, really. So
Okay. Yeah, I was just thinking simply it might be, maybe we try that because we didn't have as many people here today. We had actually, funny thing is that you didn't show. I'm not trying to make you guilty or whatever, but we
Yeah.
had like 3 or 4 people actually in attendance here Monday. So
Oh, okay. What a shame.
it's
Yeah.
okay.
What a shame.
It's not guilt trip. I'm just thinking simply
No. Yeah.
that was very odd. I think the lot have been some people who where Steve did a show on Friday and they saw who I was and they ventured over here on Monday because I mentioned that I was going to be talking with you on
Right.
Monday,
Yeah.
and so I thought that might be a part of it. That could be, who knows.
Yeah.
Mr. Menza said simply, "Thank you so much for Phil. This is very much appreciated.
Pleasure.
Brings hope." I have another guy here who says I don't know who this guy is. He says the old church radio service in Colorado. So how you doing?
Fine.
You want to ask a question, you're more than welcome to ask a question. But yeah, I need to go, like I said. But I just enjoyed doing this with you because this is a spectacular moment in a lot to me because most preachers cannot explain, anybody of that nature cannot explain what is because they never had the transformational part in their life, never had.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's
yes,
right.
it's been long. I agree, it's been long, but I could talk to you all day, Phil.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I could talk all
Nothing
day about
personal.
it. I've got concentration fatigue at the moment, so a long.
Well, that's part of me. I'm about 20 minutes ago, I was about to fall asleep. So as you get older, that's But so you would be in a favor if I choose to change the time tomorrow to your clock being 5 o'clock and my time being 12 o'clock.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
If that's okay. Yeah. You want to do it earlier? No problem. 4
No,
o'clock.
I don't want to do it any earlier. 9 o'clock's early enough for me because I get up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, earlier than noon for you, earlier than midday.
Yeah, it's 12 o'clock, but your time would be 5 o'clock.
Yeah, yeah.
Or do you want to do it later in the day? More later than that?
No, earlier than that would be better. The earlier the better. But
okay, what I'll do is I'll contemplate about it tonight and think about it, and I'll send you a message when we do it 12 and 9, and message other people and go from there.
Okay.
But I'm very much appreciative of what you've done.
Thanks.
I appreciate your heart for truth. I see a likeness in me and you in certain ways, and I appreciate you being someone who's real, someone who's fucking real, not some placid person that tries to manipulate people.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I appreciate that as well. Yeah, I like being like this. I really do. Yeah, I'm very happy. Yeah.
So I'll let you be, and you can enjoy the rest of your evening. And you take care.
Yeah, you too.
It's good talking to you, Phil. Thank you again for your time.
My pleasure. Great pleasure. Thank you very much, Brent, for asking anyway. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much. How do I get it out? Exit. Okay. All right, here it is. I'm trying to figure out what to do.
I know. I get out of here. Anyway, thank you, Phil. Bye-bye.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye.